I'm muted on Rumble? That's weird. Hold on one sec, guys. Let me figure out what's going on here. You muted on Rumble. No, I don't know why there's no sound. Let me check my StreamYard. Hold on. Let me check. Hold on. Test, test, test. It's good now? Oh, that's really weird. That is really bizarre. That hasn't... It must have been maybe a Rumble thing. I'm not sure. Okay, let me pop out this chat real quick. Thanks for your patience. So I'll repeat myself here just 1 second because I don't want you to miss what I just said. That's not the way I want to organize. Hold on. That's not the way I like to start out. Okay, it was muted on both. That's really weird because I didn't change anything or any of my settings. So I wonder if it was... I have no idea why I did that. That's interesting to me. Anyway, guys, welcome to my show tonight, guys. I'm excited. And welcome, Slosher. Welcome, Kyle, Julian, and everyone on X. If you're on X, I do see your chats, and I do try to... If you have questions, I try to recognize when you do. On every platform, guys, if you're watching, will you please hit a thumbs up? It just tells people to, hey, someone's watching this, come hang out. They're enjoying it. So please put a thumbs up. If you're on X and you're not necessarily in there chatting right now, share it. Share it on your profile. Share it with someone. Exit out of the actual thing and leave a chat below. Because if you leave a comment, it also sends it out the algorithm saying, hey, this might be something you want to see. So anyway, yes, repost on X if you can. I appreciate you for being here. So biometric health passports and the Panopticon, and how COVID is pushing us into the fourth industrial revolution, which if you've been following me, we've gone all the way through history, through World War I, World War II. We've gone through Operation Paperclip. We've gone through all of the COVID stuff with RFK Jr. I've actually had Robert Malone on my channel. And then we have gone into Operation Gladio, which if you follow Operation Gladio, anything is being done, your eyes are wide open. So I encourage you to go back. I have it pinned, actually I just barely unpinned it, but I had it pinned, the whole entire series, on my X profile. So they're all there in order. You can find them very easily. But that to me is probably one of the most important series that I've done. And it's really weird is because I had a feeling to do it. I actually had another creator. I'm trying to think of his name because I should shout him out because I asked, what should people learn? What needs in this world right now? What do we need to know? And he brought me onto Operation Gladio. And it's really interesting because everything that's happening right now with Brazil ties into it perfectly. Like it's like, oh my gosh, they're doing the exact same thing. They install these puppet leaders into these governments, and they do it through all different means. But if you understand that everything you're taught in history books just seems like, oh my gosh, they taught us a certain thing, a certain way for us to have a certain mindset and to make us think that we have certain enemies in the world. We still might have those enemies, but it makes me wonder who is really at fault. I've had close friends call me conspiracy theorist lately, which I'm not. I am someone who wants to see the big picture and I want to understand the world. So as we're watching this documentary tonight, guys, I want you, and this isn't really a documentary. This is a lady who put together a big, huge presentation. This is the first of her series. The one thing that I found the very, very most interesting to me was that my state that I live in, Utah, Salt Lake City, is mentioned so many times. And I've been seeing... It's been a while. So this thing is 3 years old. So this information is out there. It's out there on the internet. It's out there for us to learn. It's knowing. Yes, Utah is a hotbed. And I guarantee it's because we have Mitt Romney. We have Huntsman's a big, huge thing. So we have the Huntsman Institute, Huntsman Cancer Institute. We have a lot of high-end facilities that are funded by a lot of these really elite people. And gradually, as California's became expensive to live in, people have migrated to Utah and they've brought their ideas here. Or they're just like, gosh, this place is beautiful because Utah is beautiful. Let's go to Utah and let's go and we'll study these different dynamics of society and gamified learning. Yeah, I don't know what that is yet, Julian. So this is one of those things. You want to sign up for that? Okay, I think they're first experimenting on dogs, so you can do that very firstly with that. You think about it. So throughout this thing, you think about all the different ways that they have been tracking and tracing us, and tracking and tracing our habits throughout our life. How are we tracked and traced? I give you one clue: our cell phones, our computers, Google. Everything. Like, I will tell you right now that my computer wants me to do an update. And because I haven't done an update, it keeps slowing everything down. It makes it impossible to download or upload, almost forcing me to update it. And I constantly I've disabled Microsoft Edge to where it's not even a preferred window. I'll open up a tab when my computer's running slow and there's 10 Microsoft Edge windows running in the background and I have it turned off. And every time I log in, I turn it off. And then when my computer starts being slow, bam, it's turned back on. So it's learning my keystrokes, my voice, my mouse clicks, what I'm searching. So it's kind of like this thing. So as we're watching this, honestly, I'm gonna tell you, this is not the most exciting presentation. There is a lot of information. So we will stop, we will pause. And oh, hi, Patrick. We will pause and we'll talk about it. If you have questions, the goal of this, when I do these type of things, I love super chats or rumble rants. However, I want those because you appreciate what I do and the work and the effort I put into it, not because I will read out your question because you do. So if we're watching this and I see valid questions, I will push pause. I do not like to talk over two different things. I'm ADD. So I will push pause and we'll talk and we'll address it. So as we're doing that, guys, if you're on X, if you're on YouTube, if you're on Rumble, your participation is important because this is something I've learned today. Well, I already know a lot of this information, but it was like, oh my gosh, everything that we've been studying. I mean, I guess we covered the fall of the cabal, which you can't find because Rumble took them down. And I'm going to upload all of them in order. Most of them are still on X. However, I want to upload them from episode 1 and create a thread so that they're all there in order so you can see it. It covers a lot of everything that we're doing goes along with this. It's along with I'm on YouTube, so I'm trying to be a little bit careful with my words. Usually I don't do YouTube because I don't want to have to be careful with my words. So I'm going to read a definition. Yes, we're recorded all the time, 100%, everything all the time. This is why I didn't want a Ring doorbell. This is why I didn't want one of those things that I can open my garage from my cell phone because I had to give them permission to record my conversations to use it. So yeah, I didn't want to use that either. So tell me if I still have it because I don't. Okay, first of all, we're going to go over the definition of Panopticon. And I hope I'm saying that correctly. So the Panopticon is a design of institutional building with an inbuilt system of control originated by the English philosopher and social theorist Jeremy Bentham in the 18th century. So this was developed a very long time ago without the inmates knowing whether or not they are being watched. Although it is physically impossible for the single guard to observe all the inmate cells at once, the fact that the inmates cannot know when they are being watched motivates them to act as though they are being watched at all times. They are effectively compelled to self-regulation, right? Fear of getting in trouble is a big factor always. The architecture consists of a rotunda with an inspection house at its center. From the center, the manager or staff are able to watch the inmates. Bentham conceived the basic plan as being equally applicable to hospitals. So think of the way our hospitals are. Like if you go to the hospital, everything is like, I don't know, ours are like central. Hospitals, schools, sanatoriums, and asylums. He devoted most of his efforts to developing a design for a Panopticon prison. So the term now usually refers to that. All right, so I am going to do one more definition, which I thought was hysterical. Let's see. This is a definition that was in front of the video below, and I had to laugh about it. So I'm going to share it with you. Let's see if it gives the same. Let's see if it gives me. I want the Wikipedia definition of this. Oh, is it not going to give it to me? Oh, the first time I want it, it's not going to give me a week of Wikipedia. Oh, there it is. There it is, the Wikipedia. This, okay, guys. Okay, are you ready to laugh? Okay, this is for you, YouTube. This is what the definition of Great Reset is. Is an economic recovery plan drawn up by the World Economic Forum in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. The project was launched in June 2020 as a video featuring the then Prince of Wales Charles, released the then Prince of Wales Charles released to mark its launch. The initiative's stated aim is to facilitate rebuilding from the global COVID-19 crisis in a way that prioritizes sustainable development. Anytime you hear the word sustainable development, it's a red flag. WEF Chief Executive Officer Klaus Schwab described three core components of the Great Reset: creating conditions for stakeholder economy, building in a more resilient, resilient, equitable, and sustainable. Those three words are red flag words. In my opinion, do your own research and come to your conclusions, utilizing environmental, social, and governance, ESG metrics, and harnessing the innovations of the fourth industrial revolution. Okay, so this is what we're covering. This whole thing, biometric health passports and the Panopticon, is the fourth industrial revolution. Okay, so we're going to cover that tonight. But I wanted to share that definition with you because I'm almost positive that YouTube is going to label every breath you take and every move you make. Oh, every breath you take. Okay, don't make me sing because I'm completely tone deaf and I like you guys. So, guys, are you guys ready for the show? I kind of spoke for a minute to kind of like get some people in here if they want. Hello, Miss Whitney. How are you? Got Whitney. We've got Kyle, Julian. We got P. Diggets. Anyway, so I hope we enjoy this. Questions, guys. Questions always ask. I'm on this topic. To me, it's more mind-blowing information, but it goes along with everything that is going on. More laws, more taxes, more control over the people. Heck yeah, you're for it. Me too, guys. I totally am ready for this type of government. I think it is the best way that we should be living our lives. And if you believe that I believe that, then you don't know me. Where is my finger at? I feel like, did I accidentally? Oh, there it is. Oh, I have a little scroll bar at the bottom. I didn't have that before. Okay, so let's go ahead and start this. Okay, I might skip through some of the start of this because I think her introduction's a little slow, but let's see.
I just want to just start with just a.
Hold on, let me boost this first, and then I forgot to boost the sound. If it's too loud, guys, okay, 5 is blowing out your eardrums. 1 is perfect. 2, you can't hear. So 5 is like, whoa.
Just a moment of gratitude today. I'm feeling better. This is really amazing to within 6 months in January to actually have people in this moment.
Okay, so let's remember that This was 3 years ago, and she had been doing research on this 4 years prior. So she's not someone that is like this professional. I've been doing this my whole life, and I just want to get this information out there because I'm going to make a name for myself, right? So 4 wasn't an option, but thank you. So I like to. I sometimes, and maybe I shouldn't take these people more credible because I don't think they have a skin in the game, and maybe they do, and maybe it's just because they feel like we need to know this information.
That is meaningful. And I feel like, I'm from Philly. I thought I was going to fight school closures in Philadelphia. And it turns out, like, it seems like.
Okay, so if you've watched my other documentaries as well, if there's a slide up on the screen, if they don't read it, I will genuinely read it for you. Reason being is I'm a multitasker on my phone. So a lot of the times I'm doing something and can't watch my screen or my computer all the time. So I want you to be able to get the information without that. So Internet of Nano Things and Bio Nano Things, IF. All right, so it's just giving you information. We don't need to know that, but I just want to make sure.
I'm fighting militarized nanotechnology cyborgs now, like some of these things I did not know, but when you keep pulling the threads. And my city, it's a large city. It's a Black city, and it's a very poor city, and it's surrounded by very affluent community around us. And we have University of Pennsylvania.
I skipped past this. So she is from Philadelphia, and she is saying that in her city where she's at, it is predominantly Black. And she says that they do a lot of the experimentation in these cities, particularly because they can. They get away with it, and they can.
Business school, so that we're sort of a test bed. So a lot of these issues that I find at a macro level, then they actually affect people I know, so I have this weird synthesis of like studying things. I actually work when I'm not doing this as my unpaid work. My husband keeps saying, "Can you make it?"
Okay, so watch protesters nearly run over by front-end loader outside PHA headquarters. Occupy PHA.
A hobby. I guess I can't make it a hobby. But when I'm not doing this work, I work at a botanic garden that's part of the public park system. And so that is actually what keeps me grounded on land. But we're being meddled with by Comcast, and they want to put their industrial Internet of Things agricultural sensors in our sacred land. And MIT wants to put a big glowing orb in the river next to us, which, who knows, it looks a little cultish, and the Knight Foundation is giving us money to, they're the head of the Internet of Things. And so there's things even just directly where I work and where I'm a part of that are woven into this. So I feel like sometimes regular people can unexpectedly fall into something that they feel like they're supposed to do. And when I first spoke with my friend, Chris, he farms. We have 3 acres, this urban farm youth program, and he's very religious and a farmer and grounded. And he's like, "Allison, you're a Jeremiah." And I'm not very religious, so I had to go look it up. And then I thought, oh, God, really? It wasn't so great. But I guess I'm here to tell you the Babylonians are coming, and they're pretty much Eric Schmidt. So who am I? Much of my work, I wander around the internet. I sort of put this burrs on a dog, and I bump into things, and I think things get put in my path. People get put in my path. And so my background is actually art history and historic.
So her background is art history, which is what fascinated me. That anyone can go down a rabbit hole and do research. You just have to be willing to do it. I really want to skip ahead, but I'm getting nervous I'm going to miss something important because I think everything matters. So bear with it. We'll pause and make a joke here and there.
Park preservation and cultural landscapes, which is kind of a weird thing. I hate finance. I hate computers. I hate all the things that I had to figure out to try to put this puzzle together, but I'm pretty good at the puzzle. And I keep saying I would love for someone to find the thing to say, "Allison, you missed the
biosex
appeal. Totally wrong." That would be great. So far I haven't found that, but I look a lot of the work that I do. I'm looking at LinkedIn profiles, World Bank videos, the 990 tax forms, grants, just to piece it together. And it's amazing. People say, "Oh, it's a conspiracy." I'm like, it's not actually hidden. If you go looking for it, if you look in people's LinkedIn profiles, they brag about what they're doing. They just don't imagine that anyone who would be against their program would think that thing to look at their LinkedIn. So I don't know, there was somebody on social media yesterday who was connected to Finclusion and blockchain identity with the World Bank. And she's in Israel, and like had shared, someone had shared my piece, my draft of my speech tomorrow. And the woman said, oh, no, there's a grain of truth in there, but no, we're all really, really good. And so I'm like looking at her LinkedIn going, yeah, you're with blockchain Finclusion, right? Here's some things. And so
what she said right there is actually rather important. It's watch what they do, not what they say. So they're bragging on different platforms and different forums or different chat groups about things they're doing about how they're accomplishing it, right? And so she's going to their LinkedIn page and said, "Yeah, you're kind of lying right now because I know different. People will tell on themselves. That's why it's important just to be you all the time and not to put on a facade."
You can find a lot out that way. Augmented reality and mixed reality is a really important concept for us. I don't know how many people are familiar with this idea. Essentially, like Pokemon Go is the test balloon for this. But in the future, the world may look like the world you see, but is layered with information and like passcodes and coding.
Was Pokemon Go, was that the Pokemon game they played? Or am I thinking of something completely different? Because I never played that.
Into it. And that's what's coming with the Internet of Things and the Internet of Bodies. And some of the Internet of Things are down to the level of dust. So things could look just like a regular, city block, farm, garden, but they're layered. And initially it will start off with QR codes. We're already seeing that, right? Like the QR code menus and the QR codes in other countries to get in stores. But there's information that's passing through between the built environment and the digital world. And it's this like fusion of humans and computers. So because of all the information that sits in my head, like I walk out and my family is so sick of me. They're like, Mom, you're always talking about, oh, this person is actually, all of this stuff behind that. So I kind of see the world with these lenses of augmented reality. But that's an important piece. And like I said, Knight Foundation is part of this, and Niantic, which was behind Pokemon Go. So Niantic was created by Gilman Louie, and they got the startup money from In-Q-Tel. So In-Q-Tel is the venture capital arm of the CIA. So when you're understanding the world of augmented reality, it's important to understand that it's a fundamentally militarized world.
Okay, so augmented reality. So this is important, guys, to remember is this Pokemon game, Pokemon Go, was created by the CIA. So it's kind of an augmented reality. And if anyone is like, well, this is way too much information, that's okay. Do your own research and find out for yourself.
And a surveillance world, even though it might be fun like Pokemon Go. Some people think that that's a fun thing. And now we're working to have all of that coded in. So I make these giant maps. The people who fund this software, it's called Little Sis. They're the bad people.
Little Sis,
Open Society funds this and other things, but they haven't kicked me off yet. They don't collaborate with me. They don't really like, I don't think anybody is interested. They have these little target groups in different cities to do research. And then nobody was ever interested in my research, in those groups, because I was looking at the whole structure, which included it's fully bipartisan. In fact, at this point, the liberal and progressive side is scaring me more.
Okay, remember what she just said right there. This is bipartisan. It means that it's both left and right, but the progressives scare her more.
Some ways, but I make these giant maps. And so this one, ironically, was from a prosperity symposium last year with the Philadelphia Federal Reserve about poverty, moving poverty. This is sort of what I do and how I think. And it's like a mind map. So there's a database that sits behind that. And each bit has a record, and each record has a white paper. So other people can look at this and click in and follow my path and add on to it or take away. So that's sort of my process. And, I have a lot of slides tonight. I'll see how many I can get through before we start getting rammy, but this is a hyper object. Like it really is.
Okay, so this is a slide. She doesn't read a lot of her slides, so I'm going to read this one. It's like being inside that gigantic worm and the Empire strikes back. For a while, you can kid yourself that you're not inside a gigantic worm until it starts digesting you, because the worm is everywhere. in your field of vision. So it's everywhere in your field of vision. You can't really tell the difference between it and the surface of the asteroid you think you landed on. Timothy Morton, Intelligence Briefing, your introduction to the worm.
It's so big. It's like every bit of life is embedded in this augmented reality world. So I started out, they closed our schools. They used our test scores to close our schools. I got involved in the opt-out movement. I organized nationally. With that, I know that there was like quite an active group in New York around that, different across the political spectrum. And I thought that that's how I fell into all of this. The teachers couldn't come. They were busy. They were overwhelmed. They even though I put the information together, I worked really hard, and it never really clicked with them. And so then we have poverty. We also have the center of the opioid crisis, the heroin epidemic in Philadelphia. So then I started organizing with the Poor People's Economic Human Rights Campaign and Sherry Honkala. So I did that for a while. And then, but really what took hold was once the pandemic, like those first couple days, I knew. And so it was terrible for everybody to have this sense of a pandemic or what was going on and not knowing the nature of the situation. But I knew that was a trigger event for everything that I've been researching for the past, and it's only been 3 or 4 years. People say, oh, she's been doing it for decades. And I haven't really. I've only been, and you don't get a credential in this. There's no degree you can do doing it. You could do it too if you wanted to, but it's not a hobby. So it's this hyper object. And so it's almost like everything is part of it. And once you get the lens and you have the schema, you peel back and see. So I sort of threw up this idea of the Millennium Falcon in the space worm, right? Like you're in this worm and you think it's like a landscape, but it actually is a worm, and the jaws are closing. And so I feel like right now, especially with New York, with where you guys are, with this pending vaccine mandate, like the jaws are closing. So I'm trying to use this opportunity to raise some red flags. So again, this is just a slide that speaks to spatial computing and mixed reality. And what's really important to know is that, so you see these folks, they have augmented reality glasses. It's probably going to be less virtual reality, like the full-on face, but more augmented, and haptic controllers. So like I'm not a gamer, but that's how people.
This is mind-blowing. So this whole thing that they've been doing is to this is just a fun little game. You can use these goggles and just kind of virtual reality. Well, they want to use this.
People, play the video games. And what they're visualizing in the next decade is haptic robotics. So that if you imagine the next phase of globalization being not just, outsourced call centers or outsourced, coding work or, that level of, VIP kid online teaching, but that it actually goes to the point that you could do micro work assigned by artificial intelligence anywhere in the world for the cheapest price, if you have the right credential. And someone puts on a haptic suit and they run the factory like 6 countries over. And then these very advanced factories that are going to be created are very expensive. So they're going to find the place that is the most stable, as they understand it, from an environmental, like climate crisis point of view, from a social crisis point of view. And they're going to build their factory, and they're not going to really bother to have many people there. They're going to have the people in Bangladesh or, Finland or, other places put on the haptic suits and run their stuff. And that's sort of what this next level of globalization 4.0 is coming, and that's coming out of the World Economic Forum. So, it's hard to imagine how quickly these things go, right? But I think even this past 8 months, how quickly things become normalized. So I think that's what.
The reason why in my opinion, that they've become normalized is they've been gradually getting the kids used to this already, and us as well. Is they look at this cool new game that's going to come out. You're going to use your goggles, you're going to use your brain, and you can just move your hands, and things are going to work and move, right? So they're kind of making it be this fun thing. And so when they say it's normalized quickly, it really hasn't. It's actually been a very, very gradual plan that through either, whether it be through movies or whether it be various other things, it's just gradually taken place. But it feels fast to those who know about it. I hope that made sense.
Like in the next 10 years. So again, just to touch on like this Niantic, they're looking at an operating system for the world. And, again, it's essentially like as if the world were remade by the CIA to profit hedge funds. Yeah.
I was just wondering, it's amazing. Could you speak a little bit
Slower. Okay.
I know,
Yeah.
we'll be here all
Sorry.
night,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
it's so fast and so good.
Right.
And
Yeah.
I'm old.
Sorry. But this character, I don't know if any of you guys recognize him. His name is Michael Crow. He's the board chair of InQtel. He's the president of Arizona State University, and he's also.
For those of you who have followed Operation Gladio, you would know that everything is CIA. And when she says hedge funds, it's about everyone making money. And it's not everyone. It's about this group of people who is, and when I say the CIA, I'm not saying the arm of, can I even say that word on YouTube? I don't even know. I hope I can. Is that they're not talking about the regular paid part of the government. That is kind of like the more secret underground operations of, I might end this on YouTube. We'll see how it goes. I'm going to give it 10 more minutes, guys. So guys, if you're on YouTube, go over to Talk with Seth. Let me post a link over to my Rumble because I need to be able to use words to describe things, and I get all stumbled up and I get all kinds of confused when I try to explain things in a way that isn't fitting for the conversation. Like, it doesn't make sense. So anyway, so they work with this organization. Let's see, paste. Okay, there we go. Hi, Ben. How are you? So I'm going to give it 10 minutes because I need to be able to talk about these things. I'm trying to think of words to describe them. Just as confusing to me. But anyway, it's this group of people. And so when she's saying the whole goal is to make money for these hedge funds, she's pretty much talking about the WEF, these elitists that are part of this group. If that makes sense. Yeah, 10 more minutes and then I will end it on YouTube, guys. I'm sorry. I thought it would be fun to have it over here with all these people, but it's just too hard.
So a partner in Ridge Lane LP, I think, Tom Ridge, Homeland Security. So Ridge Lane, you should look them up. They have whole divisions. They're remaking real estate, IT, sustainability, and education. And so this is part of the full-on reimagining the world in augmented reality under surveillance of the CIA. And ultimately, the goal is to use us as data, both as sort of almost like batteries to run these futures markets and new financial products that I will talk about, to service people like Paul Tudor Jones, who is of Tudor Investments in Connecticut. He runs the Robinhood Foundation. His money is channeled through Robinhood Foundation, and they've built up this
P digits. I'll just try to stay here. Hopefully I don't have to use those words, but hopefully you can understand what I'm talking about.
The research behind this in the Harlem Children's Zone for the past 30 years was Stanley Druckenmiller. So Stanley Druckenmiller is George Soros's partner. They shorted the British pound together. So it's all very woven in, but we have to understand the world they're building, the nature of it. It's a militarized world for hedge funds and state surveillance. So okay. I don't know if any of you guys recognize her. Militarized world for hedge funds.
All right, I've got to rewind this because when she puts slides up, I don't know if she puts them up and doesn't read them on purpose, and so Stan Druckenmiller, Soros, and the big bet on the British pound. In his discussion of his experience with the legendary Soros, Druck related the story of how he identified the British pound as a near lock short back in 1992 and told Soros he was making a huge bet, 5.5 billion on it. Soros told him, "Don't be a fool. You should put at least 200% our net worth, 15 billion on this once in a 20-year opportunity." According to Druckenmiller, we didn't get the whole 15 billion on, but we got on enough that I'm sure that some people in the room have read about it in the financial press. So this is one of those things that I, if I remember correctly, is how Soros made a big, huge bet and he won big. And this is why he was able to have so much money. There's a couple of times in his life where he's almost gone all the way in on various different things in the world, and it's made him lots and lots of money.
And state surveillance. So I don't know if any of you guys recognize her, but I just to start off early. So Robin Wilkember, like this is like the balance, right? So I think again, all of this can feel very overwhelming. So being in New York, I couldn't help but like reference Dr. Kimmer's book, Braiding Sweetgrass. So what she says is like, we have to be the tinder carriers, you know, the tinder fungus, and that is our job. And so sometimes I go out and people say, well, Allison, if you don't have the plan, like, why are we even bothering? Like, if you don't have all the people lined up, why are you, you know, what's your answer? And I'm like, we have to build it. Like, we actually have to build it, but it's enough each individual person to carry the good parts forward. So it's not, so for every Michael Crow, then you have this wonderful author. She is a professor at the forestry school and a biologist, indigenous biologist. And so she comes at the world. And in this moment of science, like ruled by science, the idea of indigenous knowledges and knowledges of nature and the world, I think really ground me are really important to think about, that the world of life that's grounded in the real world and the real thing. And then this militarized faux world that's being built. So there's a book that I highly recommend if you guys are looking for a book to read. It's a really important context. It's called Surveillance Valley by Yasha Levine. Everybody talks about Shoshana Zuboff's and surveillance capitalism. Like, there's no answer coming out of Harvard Business School. I'm sorry to tell you. Yasha Levine's book, it's a military history of the internet. And it's really important in that regard. And that's how I found out about Norbert Wiener, he was the father of cybernetics. And so he essentially helped launch, you know, the beginning of AI and human machine interfaces. He almost was
the father of cybernetics. And yes, I'm pausing and talking because I was getting bored when I listened to this. But I wasn't bored. There was a lot of information. So far, I'm not seeing any questions that are relevant, but so the guy who wrote that book was part of the whole CIA cyber stuff and artificial intelligence. I believe that they are further along with artificial intelligence than they let us think. They think that they are still programming it. I think they're further along than they say.
He was a genius, and he in World War II, he would like calculate missile trajectories in his head. He was down at Aberdeen Proving Ground, and then he created this, but later in his life he realized what he had done. It was kind of like the Manhattan Project, like what do we actually do here? And so, you know, he described a day when the machine was the equivalent of slave labor. And so any labor that competes with slave labor must accept the economic consequences of slave labor. Mm-hmm. And so that is what we're at now with this fourth industrial revolution sort of out on the horizon and going quickly, is that they are looking to replace many careers, jobs, meaningful work. And again, you know, maybe there are some jobs that merit, that are not pleasant jobs or whatever, that could be automated, but they would like to automate, you know, teaching, healthcare, you know, childcare, elder care, farmers, everything is a robots for everybody. And then what is knowing the power disparity that we have right now and the wealth disparity.
Yes, everything will be controlled by robots. But guys, guess what the secret is? There'll be plenty of food, but you're going to eat crickets because you're not going to be needed.
It's not going to go well. I mean, I think some people on the left sort of like, great, capitalism is falling apart and now it's our turn and we're going to get our stuff and we'll sit in hammocks and we'll write the great American novel. That is not what Michael Bloomberg and Bill Gates have planned. So I think this is really important. But again, he was saying this, Norbert Wiener, in the early 1950s. And it hasn't happened yet, right? So we're 70 years down. It hasn't fully happened. So I think we still have time, but it's something to take into account. And the other piece I wanted to bring in is, especially as we talk about fighting for our freedoms, and I think there are a lot of folks who lean on like the Constitution, the Founding Fathers, and all these things. And I think especially here, and this is like what really resonated with me, is like in the Iroquois Confederacy, and like we are here because we have.
So remember, she said that this plan has been put in place since the 1950s. In my opinion, everything has been a plan. It's been a plan for a really long time, and they might have their own time frame. So maybe in 10 years, we're going to be here. In 10 years, we're going to be here. In 10 years, we're going to be here. Well, something might derail that plan by 5 years, but the plan and the way to get there is all part of the plan.
Built a nation on land theft and genocide and enslavement and unfree labor. Like, and that's just what it is. Like, not from an, I think a lot of times the identity politics stuff doesn't help, but from a political economic system, we never dealt with that. And now it's all of us. Like, it's really all of us. And so we need to find a way, I think, to move forward in unity with this, because it is the doctrine of discovery, which was part of, is it Cheryl versus Oneida, you know, the Ruth Bader Ginsburg decision nobody wants to talk about, like where they were like slapping down indigenous like land rights, but it's all of us now. So we need to know this history and understand this as a colonial project, because really what they are seeking to do, a big part of the fourth industrial revolution is synthetic biology, right? It's CRISPR, it's nanotech, it's things that may not be consensual, right? And it may be built into our environment and contaminants that we don't even know about at this point. We are being colonized down to our DNA, really. So I think that framing, it helps me a lot to think about that. And these are just some, you guys might be familiar with this already, but I think, you know, people who are not steeped in the vaccine, who haven't spent the time to look into it, I mean, they are literally looking at creating biosensors. And this is DARPA. This is, you know, a DARPA project. And they're.
If anyone doesn't know what graphene is, we can do a show specifically on Rumble for it. The things that I found out about it, when did I find out? The end of 2021. So when did I get COVID? I got COVID in 2022. But the things that I researched and found out about it prior to that, whistleblowers, people who are trying to get certain information out there, they are no longer walking on this earth. But I just happened to see their videos go up before they got taken down, which was quite amazing. And I wish that I was more advanced in my worldliness as far as I wasn't on the internet. I forgot that people could take screenshots from their phones or screen record or download. Like I just wasn't I'm a techie person, but I just wasn't up to date. I just didn't think about it. And that's probably one of my biggest regrets. Yes, graphene is very useful for electronics. That's what they use in almost everything.
They're framing this as the future of pandemic preparedness. And then Moderna, which is, you know, in the lead among these vaccines, is they're framing it as the software of life. And again, I would ask, what kind of life, like who gets to decide what kind of life that is? That is a cyborg life, a population level bioengineering. And that is backed by Gates. And I had not looked into, but graphene. So graphene is the first, I guess, two-dimensional material, and it's all central to nanorobotics. Like they actually have nanotech that can self-assemble in you, like, and it doesn't come out, you know what I mean? And there's a whole EU division on graphene, the graphene flagship project. I had never heard of graphene until like 2 months ago, right? But, you know, they're talking about biosensors, neural interfaces, and drug delivery programs. And so really our bodies are being used to extract profit for pharmaceutical companies in this biosecurity state.
That was what was most interesting, the way she worded that. Our bodies are used to extract profit for this what did she just say? Biomedical field, but pretty much the pharmaceutical industry wants to use us for our bodies for profit. And they've been doing it for years and years and years, ever since, I would say, probably even before the 1960s, but definitely after the 1960s for sure. We've gotten less healthy. We've gotten more sick. We've gotten more overweight, and it's a lot by our foods, our medicines. There's a lot of profit on having an unhealthy society.
The other piece that I was talking with a friend. She's an amazing researcher as well, in a lot of different areas. She's actually an energy healer and had been a targeted individual. But, you know, we were talking about the brain, right? Like we know, I don't know whereabouts in upstate, MK Ultra, right? Like, I mean, that's Jonathan Moreno, who's a professor, a bioethicist for, you know, at Penn, but his father was part of MK Ultra somewhere up in upstate New York. Now we're looking at mind control. Like we're actually talking about using neural dust and other things to both enhance soldiers. They call it dual use. Like, you know, they'll frame it, they'll develop something for a medical purpose, you know, but they're actually using it for militarized purposes. And it's very unclear in what ways it could be used on domestic populations. And again, whether or not that's agreed upon, or you have a right to refuse that, or if you would know. And I think some of us are also struggling with like, what happened to everybody? At least for me, I was like, all the people I thought would be with me were like with me on all the education stuff when this happened. And I knew exactly what it was about. I mean, I wasn't sure, honestly, at the beginning, if it was potentially a military exercise that had a real component. Like, I was willing to hold out for a while to see, but I'm like, all of the people, little sis.
Oh, I just rewound it.
Like a landscape, but it actually is a worm.
Didn't need to do
ultimately the goal is months, how quickly things become
normalized. Oh my
gosh. So I think created are very virtual reality, like the full on face, but more augmented. And how
19 minutes. Thank you. Oh my gosh. Usually I know exactly how many minutes in I am. Meant to push pause. Okay, here.
Purpose, but they're.
So what she just reminded me of what she just said right there. And like RFK Jr. or not, I'm not advocating for president or what not president. When we do these shows, you guys know who I'm voting for, and it's not him. However, there's some things that he is spot on about. And he was saying, and whether this has been validated or not, and he's said it openly in front of the public, and I haven't seen anyone to refute him yet, but he was saying that the COVID vaccines were a product of the Defense Department. So DARPA created them, and they used Pfizer, Moderna, and all these different companies that were supposedly this private partnership, government partnership. They used them as kind of a front to kind of hide that they already had these things. They already had them developed. They already had them in stock. And because it was such a big experimentation, and I'm not saying this is true, guys. Do your own research. This is just what RFK Jr. says. The other rest of the people say, no, this is a pandemic and that those shots save their lives. And that's what I think 100% is that the vaccines are really good for you. And I think that you all should make sure that you have all 3 of your boosters at all times. Okay. This is just what RFK Jr. is saying, but that's what he was saying.
They're actually using it for militarized purposes, and it's very unclear in what ways it could be used on domestic populations. And again, whether or not that's agreed upon or you have a right to refuse that, or if you would know. And I think some of us are all still struggling with like, what happened to everybody? At least for me, I was like, all the people I thought would be with me were like with me on all the education stuff when this happened. And I knew exactly what it was about. I mean, I wasn't sure, honestly, at the beginning, if it was potentially a military exercise that had a real component. Like, I was willing to hold out for a while to see, but I'm like, all of the people who are still out there denying the Great Reset and what it means, I'm like, they specifically, James Giordano, he's based at Georgetown. So these are all very prestigious.
I just wanted to remind you guys right now, since I am on YouTube, that the Great Reset is just a financial plan that Soros and the WEF came up with in order to be able to recover our economy. It'll be sustainable economic and social economic. So DEI. So by doing all these different things, guys, we are going to recover our economy. So that is what the Great Reset is. And so I'm listening to this person because I need to educate you that what she's saying is incorrect.
Individuals, he's presenting at the Modern War Institute, which is at West Point, again, New York. He's saying the mind is the battle space, and that they can immobilize the enemy. They can stop people from fighting back. And so, I think and I can't prove any of these things, but I mean, this is from 2 years ago at West Point, and they're talking specifically about immobilizing people from engaging. So again, this is just to sort of touch on a piece of what I'm going to be talking about is blockchain. A lot of these systems, blockchain is going to be what connects us into the Internet of Bodies and smart environments. And
this is the one thing that I want to understand. And maybe someone out here that's in like either YouTube or on X, if someone out there in this universe could explain to me how blockchain works because I think these people who are in this industry know it at a high level. I need someone to explain it to me at a simpleton level so that I can build on it. Because I always try to understand what blockchain means. And maybe this lady is going to help me make sense of it. Because when I listened to this today, I listened to 1.5 times today, but I didn't look at the slides that went along with it because I was working in the yard of multitasking. So maybe she'll tell me, but I want to understand this because everyone's talking about blockchain everywhere.
it will be logging information in perpetuity in these digital ledgers.
Would you say that we're in
Blockchain to track
like children's blocks and then a chain. And there was a book that I read, I think it's called The Half Not Told, about capitalism and slavery and the way in which value was extracted. I'm trying to remember his name. I think Edward Baptiste's book. It's also very good, talking about cotton, the cotton industry and how they continue to extract more and more profit from physical bodies. They're like, usually when you get more profit, it's because you have an improvement in a machine, right? Like you improve, well, the machine were enslaved people. And essentially what.
Okay, so she's not reading her slides, so that's okay. So I'm going to read it for you. So it says blockchain. So think of it as you have a block, which is B. So you go from block to ledger to distribution to transaction to confirmation, proof of work, block reward. Okay, so that's kind of the chain. So it's block, ledger, distribution, transaction, confirmation, proof of work, and block reward. Okay, one more time, because 3 times the charm. And this is important to what blockchain is everywhere. I hear blockchain all the time. So it's block, ledger, distribution, transaction, confirmation, proof, and block reward. Thank you, JD. How are you? We're going over, I don't know, you probably could read the title, so you're kind of a little late, but I hope you enjoy it. Thanks for joining us.
He was able to document was that under threat of torture, they increased their cotton harvesting production so much faster because they got people to use both hands. And essentially it made people dissociate. You know, like they were using bodies in ways that they were never meant to be used. And so I think this idea of blockchain accounting systems, what's coming with the financial pieces that I'm going to be talking about, the legal firms are very much embedded in it. Like I know that the event tomorrow is targeting the Bar Association. They're part of Pay for Success Finance, right? The lawyers are going to be setting this up. The accountants are going to be setting this up. And so when the transatlantic, like maritime trading laws, that was double entry bookkeeping, was right at the same time, right? And a lot of that maritime trade was in bodies. Well, now blockchain is the new decentralized accounting ledger. And so I just want to make it very clear.
So she's saying blockchain here is decentralized accounting ledger. So decentralized, I would think they would want it centralized, but she's saying it's decentralized. And it all ties into being able to use the human body for profit. So, I mean, so kind of keep that in the mind. I mean, that's kind of where she led off with this. So the human body is profit. In which ways are they going to use our bodies for maximum profit? So she related it to the slave days of where under duress or threat of being punished, they would get people to work harder.
That these financial transactions in human capital are something that have a very long history. And we deserve to, like, we need to remember that thinking forward. And so I take a lot, when I think about these things, I think about like, how do we resist? And there have been people who've been resisting empire, you know, and domestic imperialism, like imperialism within our borders for centuries, right? And so like what gives me a lot of hope is looking at like indigenous sovereignty movements, right? John Trudell has been a big influence, like his work, and I'm going to reference him tomorrow. But also Marinage and those Caribbean slave revolts, right? And so how did people have they over time refused to be erased and struggled against these systems where the odds seemed really out of their favor, and honoring that struggle as we go forward, because I think as we grow our ranks, my goal would be that we come up with a struggle that we are all in it together for the right reasons. So Klaus. So Fourth Industrial Revolution, this is the face of the Great Reset. You know, he's been at it since the 70s. And, you know, a lot of folks I know about Bill Gates. For New York, Michael Bloomberg is super important. And I would say I don't think enough bloggers and speakers really speak to the role of Michael Bloomberg as the person who is really, Bill Gates is going to get everyone on blockchain, but then Michael Bloomberg is going to run the policing smart cities. He's going to run the global police state and for finance. And his background, so he was the ambassador to the World Health Organization.
This is one thing that I think that this is really important for people. Private partnerships with the government have been sold to us, especially during 2020 there and 2019, 2020, all of that whole year. Private partnerships were sold to us that it was this great idea. This was this great thing for the world. And it's almost like they got us used to this idea of private partnerships with the government. So what she's saying here is the center of the fourth. So this is all tied into the fourth industrial revolution. And I need to find some books on this so I can give more detail. This is going to be probably just an overview of it. And if it's something that you want me to dig into deeper, guys, I will. And I am going to get just a heads up. I am going to get back on track with Operation Gladio. I think what happened is, when you cover something that that is so totally different than what your reality is and what you've been taught your whole life. And when you do go into it, it's dark and you have what's called cognitive dissonance. It's like you don't want to accept it. So you have to kind of like take a break from it and be like, okay, this really did happen. And I think that's what happened to me because I was gun ho. And then as soon as I did the South America series on that, I think my brain and mentally I needed a break to just be like, okay, this happened. This is reality. And so now I can go on to the next part of it and go into much detail. And I have been working on it. So that'll be coming out. They'll come out when they come out. And I'm not going to sit and stress myself about, I've got to get it done by this day on this day. So we'll have shows pre-planned ahead of time. And by the way, Traveling Fools, if you've ever covered any of this stuff and dug into it, you're welcome to join my show. You're always a welcome guest. Anyway, I got sidetracked. While I'm off sidetrack, I say, if you are in Rumble, please hit that thumbs up. If you hit that thumbs up, it lets people know. Every time you guys do that, it increases my numbers. Same with YouTube. And it sucks that you have to close the chat to do that. I wish they would just have the thumbs up at the bottom of the chat, make it simple. On X, on the chat, I don't even know. Let me open up the chat real quick and see what I see from my point of view. Did I close it? The chat is still open, right? Okay. Hold on. Let's make you big for a second. Yeah, they don't give you the opportunity to leave any kind of a thumbs up during the chat. So if you're watching on X, guys, you actually have to physically leave there and then hit the like button and then share it. If you're liking, if you don't, that's great. But leave a comment as to why you don't so that I can do better because I want to bring you information. And I am pausing a lot during this because there is a lot of information and my brain needs to slow down to absorb it all. So anyway, let's continue. So anyway, I was saying that this is a lot, the fourth industrial revolution. She was saying that Soros is going to be part of, I missed what she said now. I had a squirrel moment. It'll come back to me and then I'll readdress it.
And he was ambassador for climate change. So all of the sustainable development goals, he has his hand in. And his background is he graduated from Johns Hopkins. So he essentially owns Johns Hopkins. He owns the Johns Hopkins School of Public Health is named after him. Event 201 was his thing. But he's an electrical engineer. Michael Bloomberg is an electrical.
Did she just say that Michael Bloomberg owns Johns Hopkins? Is that what she just said? Hold on. I did not realize that. Okay, let's go back. I want to just go back 10 seconds on here and it doesn't let me. Hold on.
The ambassador to the World Health Organization. He was ambassador for climate change. So all of the sustainable development goals, he has his hand in. And his background is he graduated from Johns Hopkins. So he essentially owns Johns Hopkins. He owns the Johns Hopkins School of Public Health is named after him. Event 201 was his thing. But he's an electrical engineer. Michael Bloomberg is an electrical engineer. That was his undergraduate at Johns Hopkins.
Michael
and
Bloomberg.
So he comes at all of this. His fortune was made in data analytics, right? And so if what...
Oh my gosh, guys. Oh my gosh. So I don't know. I do not know how many of you guys have followed Megan Fox and heard John Hopkins' stories. And this whole sadness of like kidnapping kids and taking kids away from their families, John Hopkins is one of the biggest hospitals that is done this, where it's medical kidnapping, pretty much, where they will accuse a parent of, like, they have a sick child and they can't figure out what's wrong with this child. So they'll take their kid to the doctor. They'll try different things because this girl had some, I can't think of the name right now. It's been a minute. The chronic pain, CP. She had a chronic pain syndrome for a child, and it was super, super painful. And her mom was a nurse, so she knew exactly what it was. Not what it was, but she didn't kind of care that she needed. Well, they end up taking away the mother's rights. And this girl's in this hospital. She's 10 years old, going through all kinds of trauma. Her family can't see her. So her mother decides to unalive herself because that was the only way to bring this girl home. But this isn't the first time. I think there's been 70 cases on the East Coast that I know of that are now suing John Hopkins or trying to get some kind of legal redress. Don't quote me on the exact numbers, but I didn't realize that Michael Bloomberg owned that hospital. And I didn't realize that he was connected to Soros. I guess I should have. I'm sorry that when things are okay, let's also remember this, guys, because I look at things on a global scale and I look at everything as this big, huge plan that's going out there. There's all these informations and bits and pieces. At any time we're watching something and there's an opportunity to plug this piece into here, we will do it every time. And hopefully not get us on track of our topic. So anyway, bear with me. I apologize, guys, but that was a very interesting fact to me.
What you understand about what's coming in a world of augmented reality is that the people who can predict, who have access to the most data, can shape outcomes or short outcomes. That is tremendous power. And so he's had long-standing relationships with Microsoft, with domain awareness system, right? So the ubiquitous surveillance system that they built, New York City built with Microsoft and then franchised, okay? And like there are seats in domain awareness systems in the headroom for the Federal Reserve and Goldman Sachs and these finance companies in the smart policing state. So Michael Bloomberg is also.
So Federal Reserve, Microsoft, kind of pay attention to these things, guys. Like all these companies right now, this is important. And like I said, she's full of information, and that's why I'm pausing to just reiterate that Microsoft, the Federal Reserve, electrical engineer, computer guru.
Also behind something called What Works Government. So it's framed, and a lot of this is you have to tease it apart what they're really saying. They say, you know, data-driven government, e-government, efficiencies, transparency, accountability. That's how they frame it. But he's bought hundreds of Midwest, like governments of Midwestern cities, also cities in Europe and India. And he has dabbling in Israel too. So
did she just say he's bought cities? Like he's actually purchased cities in these countries? Are you serious?
Essentially, he's got the apparatus, and even if he doesn't have the politician necessarily, and again, this is fully bipartisan, he has the data analysts and the bureaucrats and all of this stuff. So once government becomes sort of run by algorithm, you can just swap out who's standing in front of the algorithm, but the algorithm doesn't change. And so that's why it's really important for New York to understand the Bloomberg connection. So for people who aren't familiar with the fourth industrial revolution, I just want to hit on some of the elements. So automation is a big one. So again, what we're looking at with this whole, the whole COVID situation.
Okay, I'm going to read these all out. That way, when she explains them, they're already read out here in order. So the fourth industrial revolution is one going to be automation, globalization 4.0, which is telepresence labor, robotics, artificial intelligence, machine learning, Internet of Things, ubiquitous computing, synthetic biology, cyborg, human machine interface, nanorobotics, quantum computing, and 5G, 6G, and digital twinning. So that, as she explains it, if you don't see the slides, then we know them in order in case she gets off track, because she kind of sounds a lot like me.
And the vaccine mandates and the vaccine certificates and the digital identities that will go with it is about managing excess labor. right? So the last time they had, the excess labor in the 80s, they, Black and brown people. Oh, what do we do? Well, we will put them in jail, and then we can extract profit from them in jail. They were excessed as globalization starts. What happens when you have this next phase of globalization and robots are taking over? You have so many more people that are dispossessed. And I was just listening to a book coming up this morning, Custer Died for Your Sins, and they were talking about pushing indigenous people off the land and making them dependents and calling them incompetent and making all their decisions for them. And that's really what we're looking at right now, is that how will Bill Gates and Michael Bloomberg and Cuomo and Eric Schmidt make money off of people when the robots are doing the work? And it's not because they're going to give us a hammock and, and some watercolors and tell us to have fun and write poetry. That's not how it is. They want to turn us into data. So the automation is a big piece. I touched on telepresence labor. That started with drone warfare, right? Like drone warfare was early telepresence labor with haptics. Artificial intelligence and machine learning and the Internet of Things and ubiquitous computing. And also synthetic biology. So all of these things are generating data. And I think what I didn't realize, I went through a phase of really focusing on educational technology and as a surveillance and a profit center.
So recently, I don't know, was it a month or two ago? Someone had said something to Elon, and they'd asked, for me, this part of life is terrifying for me, because why would we want to have a chip and have everything be automated, everything have AI doing all the work for us? And his answer was, oh, think of all the things that you could be doing instead of work. You could find other productive things to do with your life. To me, that's terrifying, because I just don't see people allowing people. I don't know. Maybe it would work. Live in a 15-minute city and stay inside your apartment. I don't know what kind of life that is. I can't grasp how this is going to work for the average useless eater.
I came across Werner Vinge. He's a professor emeritus at UC San Diego in computer science. And he's also writes science fiction. And so he wrote a book called Rainbow's End, which is sort of a near future world of augmented reality and wearable technology. But, he first posited the singularity, which is like general artificial intelligence, like attaining consciousness, right, outside of human control. And, once I realized that part of this, I think you hear it with Musk, getting out ahead, is that we have to merge with computers, or, the singularity is going to happen. So we have to understand that all of the data we throw off is hastening that process. Whether or not they can actually accomplish it, I don't have the technical expertise to speak to if they can actually do it. But it is feeding the algorithms and training the algorithms. And I was probably one of the only parents in the Philadelphia Public School District that we refused Google Classroom for our child when they were in school. So they went through 13 years. And Google came in, and most districts, they've taken over all the email accounts. So it would say philasd.org on the end, the kid's name, but it was a Google account. And all of the teachers were working through Google Classroom.
She did touch on that.
So before I even understood about the algorithms and the machine learning, I was like, well, that's surveillance. They can actually accomplish it. I don't.
Okay, so I thought I was hoping that she would read this, but she didn't. So Werner, information-centric 21st century society. The plot revolves around an attempt to create a "you gotta believe me" or UGBM technology, a virus that appears to be both biological and technological, and functions to render a population susceptible to the control of a single person or ruling group. So YGBM would effectively create a state of exceptions in which the leader can direct the population without effective resistance. So it's pretty much centered around do as you're told without resisting.
Technical expertise to speak to if they can actually do it. But it is feeding the algorithms and training the algorithms. And I was probably one of the only parents in the Philadelphia Public School District that we refused Google Classroom for our child when they were in school. So they went through 13 years. And Google came in, and most districts, they've taken over all the email accounts. So it would say philasd.org on the end, the kid's name, but it was a Google account. And all of the teachers were working through Google Classroom. And so before I even understood about the algorithms and the machine learning, I was like, well, that's surveillance. and also intellectual property. If all of the work that you're doing is put and uploaded into Google, but essentially with our Gmail accounts and with our Google Classrooms and this is a Google SlideShare, but we're training the machine to replace us. And that.
So I don't know exactly when they put Google in classrooms. I do know, I think it was when my son entered junior high. So I'll tell you this right now. He is super, 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 super smart, but he's not a read from a computer smart, because he gets bored like me because he has ADD. He needs like interaction step by step. But I'll tell you what, so when he was 3 years old, I didn't teach my kids the alphabet. I taught them their letters and their sounds. So the A says eh, the B says b, the C says every letter makes this. Anyway, so by the time he was 3, he knew all of his letters and sounds. And when he was in first grade, apparently he couldn't see up close. So he had all of his, hey, Mr. Mac. So he had all of his letters memorized. He had them memorized. He was smart. So when they would go to do like their flashcards for reading, he was smart. So he could remember the order of which the teacher put them in on their little keychain. You take them home and you go and you read all your flip cards, right? So every single night when I would bring him home, he couldn't see them. So he memorized the order, which I didn't know this for like a year, but that's not the point. The point was he was super smart. But he was the first generation to go through the new Obama program, where it was no kid left behind, right? So there was no consequences. If you failed a class or you failed a grade, they didn't keep you behind and teach you, hey, and it's not even a punishment, really. It's like, oh, he doesn't have a grasp. Let's give him another year to repeat it until he grasps it, right? Well, they took away those incentives. So every single kid goes to the next level, and they could be behind 2 years in a subject because they got sick or whatever reason. But he was the first kid to go through this. As a super smart kid, he struggled really, really hard in school. And when he was struggling with math, I forced him to stay after school to go and talk to his teacher to get help. And I said, hey, he needs help in this subject. He needs to get caught up. So what she did is she went to her projector and went and put up a slide and said, okay, here, this is what you missed. So she didn't teach by explaining things. She step by step, like normal teachers did. It was either by computer lessons or it was by just putting a slide up on a projector, and that's how she taught. And so these kids who went through, he's 19 now. So when they went through the school, he's behind. And so Google, and I know Google was in here because they got their Chromebooks. So each of them was sent home with a tablet or like a little computer. They had their own Microsoft computer. They had their own Gmail email account that's associated with the school. And everything they did on that computer was tracked while they were in a school. And those computers sometimes came home and logged into my internet because of homework, right? So think of that. Think of all the ways that kid's been tracked since he was 10 years old. And now it's even younger than that. And I don't know why I felt that was relevant, and it might be and it might not be, but I feel like it is.
That's something I think people are not thinking about, and teachers are not thinking about, that when they're running all of their classes on Google Classroom, they're, and then eventually we're getting to quantum computing and then 5 and 6G digital twinning. So can you raise your hand if you've heard of 6G?
I've never heard of this.
So some of you, yeah, I hadn't until recently, but the papers, there's a number of papers. If you go to Little Sis and put in digital twinning, but that's the idea. And this is really about industrial engineering in gambling. But the digital twinning, I had sort of an online exchange with someone on one of my blog pieces or videos who was he was at work for a company that did digital twinning. And I said, well, we're next, right? Like, he's like,
okay, she's not going to read this slide, so I'm going to read it to you. So many services utilizing cyber physical fusion will be created in the 2020s and will be used practically in all environments. But more advanced cyber physical fusion will be required in the 2030s by transmitting and processing a large amount of information between cyberspace and physical space without delay. Tighter cooperation between both spaces will be achieved. Oh, so having Starlink and having these different things that are super fast, having fiber, super, super fast, tighter cooperation between both spaces will be achieved, and ultimately fusion without a gap between the space will be actualized for humans. It will become possible for the cyberspace to support human thought and action in real time through wearable devices and micro devices mounted on the human body. Holy crap. So like right now, like that, it already comes back to me. So they're melding, they're fusing, fusing. All kinds of things such as transportation equipment, including cars, construction, machinery, machine tools, monitoring cameras, and various sensors will be linked to cyberspace. Holy crap. There will be support, safety, and security solutions to social problems and a rich life for people. Okay, a rich life for rich people, guys. Which rich life? Figure 2 to 5 shows an image of the technological development towards 6G, which I haven't heard about that, to actualize the above concept. In the future, there will be use cases that require extreme performances that even 5G cannot achieve, as well as new combinations of requirements that do not fall into the 3 categories of 5G: EMBB, URLLC, and massive machine type communications, MMTC. Okay, so I don't know if you guys are aware of this, but the towers that we have right now are 5G towers. They are actually have the capability to go higher. So 5G means 5 gigahertz, 4G, 4 gigahertz. So these towers that are installed actually have the ability to go higher than that. But right now they have the 5G, right? And anything over 5G is very dangerous for human life, from what I understand from reading. And that could just be a conspiracy theory.
No, but I'm doing a machine, right? Like I will model I think it'll come back. It's, I'm modeling an engine, right? And then you can tweak the engine in the digital twin and see how to improve in performance. But really what they're looking at doing is they want a digital twin of every person in the world now. And then they actually have these simulations that were set up. I'm trying to remember if it was at Purdue, where they can model out the scenarios, the military, but like literally with digital people. And I made a wonderful friend through these weird digital spaces, but he has spent 30 years. I'm not sure. Yeah, maybe I see a screen here, but it was. He's designed video games. He's coded games and done AI and blockchain. And he, in the last 5 years, started to realize how it was all converging in really sinister ways. And he's, having 30 years in, very experienced. A lot of the younger people, it's just like bells and whistles, and they don't think that it could be scary. They don't see any of the danger, but he saw the danger. So he's actually right now building a game to try to explain this, so that you could actually play it and see what it means to live in an augmented reality police state. But he has these characters that they actually code and build, and then until you load them all up.
Augmented reality police states. Remember, like that, I think is an important thing that I'm trying to grasp. So augmented reality police state. So we're going to be governed by a police state, and that's probably where the Panopticon. Why is that word weird to say? Panopticon is going to play a role, because if we think we're under constant surveillance, we're going to be wanting to go along with this augmented reality. And they've started practicing. I mean, they've been practicing they first started with the slaves, and now they did it in the 80s by creating prisons. It all comes full circle.
They just sort of stand there like droopy. But I think that's the digital twinning thing is really important. I'm not sure. Did I? Oh, there we go. Yeah. Yeah. So digital twinning is also part of like the transhumanism piece. And I think for me, this is something that, I had limited success with all my previous audiences, and then pandemic happened, and the people who like immediately got me were like people of a strong faith practice, but all kinds, like a spiritual practice, and holistic healers. Those are my people. And those wasn't anything I really had experience with, but they were like, we're with you. Like, we got you. Like, we understand what this is. And so I think understanding transhumanism and these digital twins and the break and the natural versus the the mechanistic is that
when these guys started talking about transhumanism, I thought there was no way on earth that this is a real thing. Like, I was like, oh yeah, this guy's a little out there, and they believe that this can really work, right? Usually DARPA, everybody, usually these things have already been proven out. I don't know if they've accomplished this yet, but the fact that Elon has successfully put a chip in someone that now can play video games, can see now, are they closer than we think? Like, when they say cyborg or whatever, I was just like, no way, transhumanism, this is stupid. I don't believe this. This is like, I believe in conspiracy theories, but this is out there. And to me, it's still out there, but I don't know. Right in front of our, yes, life is mimicking movies and it's right in front of our eyes. So Mrs. Mack is saying that the Truman Show, yes. You know what we need to watch, Julian, before I forget to tell you? We need to find The Matrix. Okay, guys, I have never seen The Matrix. I think we need to do a binge watch of The Matrix because it's a documentary. It is not a movie. So I really need to watch it.
There is a spiritual thing going on here, right? And they would seek to like harvest us and make us this anti-life version of ourselves. And it feels like very much, and maybe I'm going over the top here, but it does feel like a battle of good and evil. Like it feels like if we are here in this moment and we can see this, like if we're willing to stand and look at it, like we're here for a purpose. Like we're here for a purpose. So, so I think if
seek to harvest us and
I think to disconnect our spirit from the land. I mean, so we have their natural energy systems of the earth and the cosmos. And that's what I love so much about Robin Wall Kimmerer. Her other book is about moss. That's her specialty. She's a biologist and she studies moss. So I keep thinking when I have these bad days, like, well, Michael Bloomberg can maybe control this layer, this slice of the world or life, but he's not controlling the moss and he's not controlling the star, the stars really. Like the world is much bigger. And I think, for me, even thinking back to, different quantum dimensions or physics or string theory, and I don't have the answers on all of these things, but if we're supposed to just sit back and fight DARPA, like out DARPA, like I don't think that's going to work. So there's some other tools out there in the beauty of the world and our spirits that we can take this on. And I think they would like to push us into the virtual world to control us, both for profit and to manage us so that they can dominate us. But I think there is actually something about trying to disconnect our beingness, because I think we're way more powerful than they want us to know. And so the digital twinning and reducing us to data that.
So kind of what she's saying there that kind of makes sense to me, and I could be wrong on this, is she's saying that they want to separate like our spiritual being from the earth. Right? Kind of disconnect us from it. And in a way, they've kind of successfully done that, because when we were kids, we played outside. We got scraped knees. We played in the dirt. We did all kinds of things. What do kids do now if parents allow them? They're either watching Netflix, they're watching Disney, they are on their phones constantly. They're constantly attached to their phones. This is one thing that I can say with my kids is they're both would prefer to be active. And that's probably because I grew up poor, but I did control what they watched from a very young age. I didn't have Disney. They didn't have commercials until later in life. I'll tell you about that later, because that's an interesting thought experiment that I in real time noticed the difference. But anyway, I think that's like separating our spirit from the land, the body is it's disconnecting us from other humans. That makes, like, how when you talk with someone, you're connecting and you get to, like, even when I talk to someone and I'm on the internet, I feel some kind of a connection because I'm still seeing their body language. But these kids are communicating through text. There's not that spiritual connection. There's not that interaction. And you see it all the time with especially boys who are later teens. They don't know how to communicate. And I don't mean that in a mean way, but they're very awkward. They're very shy. They can communicate just fine with their thumbs on a phone, right? But to communicate in the real world is awkward for them. We need to start forcing our kids to interact with people again.
that can be engineered is something I think a lot about. So I'm going to talk a little bit about financial markets and reskilling. So they've like cleared the deck on a whole bunch of jobs, and now everybody has to be reskilled for the fourth industrial revolution, which means you can code the digital jail or you can build the cyborg pharmaceuticals. I think that's what is it?
Cyborg
Murphy in New Jersey,
pharmaceuticals.
Governor Phil Murphy. Yeah, like so he has these new career impact bonds that you can essentially do. It's green energy, big pharma, or coding boot camps. Those are the three things that you're allowed to do now. But skills is really huge because it's a financial market. And the guy, one of the people who is behind the skills, his name is Pavel Leksha. And I would encourage, especially if you're interested in the education space, there's something called Global Education Futures. And Pavel Leksha started it. He his background is actually in mining, which is interesting. But he's from Skolkovo in Moscow, which is sort of the Silicon Valley and he's a transhumanist.
This is kind of like, you know how when they shut down like car factories and they moved them to other countries, and they are always like, well, you can learn a new skill. You can go to school, we'll give you grants, and you can learn to be a computer programmer. You can learn to do digital. These guys who've never done anything but work with their hands will learn this new skill. And the idea started with taking away certain industries to force them to have to take up these new skills in order to survive and feed their families. By the way, guys, if you're watching in real time, and this is the first time that you've joined me on one of these, I think out loud in real time. I connect dots and I have aha moments and I say them out loud. This is my thought process. These are my thoughts alone. I am not saying they are correct. They're just observations. And please always do your own research. And I think that all of this is a big conspiracy, and but it's good to know what the conspiracy theories are out there so that we can debunk them.
And he thinks that we should upload our consciousness to the internet, and that's how things are going to go. And so what he has been collaborating with MIT, right? And so I do have some thoughts about MIT Media Lab and Joy Ito and Epstein giving them a lot of money about dissociation and digital copies of experiences and these mind uploads, because this is all, it sounds crazy, but this is literally Pavel Leksha's slide lecture called NeuroWeb. And he's saying this is what we're doing. We're planning on doing mind consciousness uploading. So a lot of this is about commodities. We think about enslavement, right? We think about slavery as a whole, but I don't think most people would think of an enslaved person as a commodity per se. That's not, we think of it as slavery, we don't think it as a commodity. But there's a good talk by a guy, his name is Calvin Schermerhorn, and it's supply chains. And
this is another reason, guys. Okay, I heard this in a space the other night, and this just kind of clicked just now. So humans are a commodity. So our government can get money from other countries or take a loan from the Federal Reserve. I still need to figure out. I know the process of how everything works, but I don't know to final detail of how everything works. In my head, it makes sense. But when they want to get a loan, hi Gutters Pub, welcome. Oh my gosh, you guys are awesome. So when the government wants to get a loan, so say they want to build, right now, we need to loan money because we need to build and send it to Ukraine because we've gone way over budget and we're out of our money. So what they will do is they will say, this is the population of our country, and we have this many kids, people, young adults, 18 to 30 years age. They are working, able-bodied people. So they can say their value of their labor is worth this much money, right? So they can get a loan for these people. So having our borders wide open and allowing all of these young able-bodied workers supposedly to come across our borders, and they're on the census and they're getting, they're here, right? They know where they're at. The government knows where they're at. So they can take a loan out on them. So that is how they become a commodity, if I'm understanding correctly. But that kind of makes sense. If you guys have any thoughts on that, please correct me. Oh my goodness.
Commodity chains, and it's about the finance of the domestic slave trade. So when they stopped this transatlantic, but continued it, they were moving enslaved people from the Chesapeake Bay tobacco area into the sugarcane plantations in Louisiana. And so there was a whole financial apparatus that had to happen because the currency was different. And there was New York City was playing a huge part, both in the industry and the transfer of that. There was a whole system set up of hypothecation, which was drawing value out of bodies that you controlled. And so the Bank of Louisiana that enabled bonds in enslavement was tied to this concept of hypothecation. And that's really what's coming up, is that we are going to be considered commodities and predictively profiled based on our perceived value to this new system, this anti-life system. So Eric Schmidt is the one who's like, data is the new oil. So and where is that data going to come from? It's going to come through educational technology, the telemedicine sector, nanorobotics, and smart housing. So the housing is really important too. And it may be less so out.
Okay, let me read all this because she missed a couple on her slides. So data is the new oil, humans plus devices, education tech, telemedicine. Oh, they started introducing telemedicine during 2020. It was the first time I had ever heard of it. Internet of bodies, nanorobotics, and smart housing. How many of you guys have a smart fridge, smart thermometer, garage door opener? I don't. I refuse. I refuse to do all that stuff. I know people who do it and they're super excited about it. And they probably know everything I do, but I just can't do it. I just can't do it. Being on the computer and having to say yes to different apps and put my information in killed me, by the way.
Here, but looking at like 3D printed, like housing, manufactured housing with smart devices. So there's a company in Austin that's doing tiny houses, but they look really cool, right? Like they look like mid-century modern.
Have you guys seen Elon's houses? I should pull up a picture. This reminds me exactly what Elon is doing. His little teeny tiny houses that have everything that you need. They're, I guess they're bulletproof though. That's kind of cool. I don't know if they're bomb-proof though.
Modern, like everything in a, but it has 60 Internet of Things sensors in it. And they've been piloting on refugees because a lot of this is piloted through humanitarian aid on Syrian refugees where they have retinal scans. Like you have to have a retinal scan to get in your house. And so the level of surveillance in Panopticon, like they know what your temperature is. They know like when you got up in the morning. They know, actually they've even talked about that there are toilets now in terms of biometrics that have sphincter biometrics, right? What? And so like there are markets where they're going to talk about like, well, we will pay for sanitation in developing worlds, but we need to have a payoff in a medicalized cost offset, right? Like we're going to pay for it by saying we are improving health metrics, but we need to know.
Oh, I'm going to have to take a screenshot of this. This needs to be memed. The smart toilet features personal butthole recognition. What if you shave or like wax or like that? What? Okay, sign me out of that one, guys. But why do you need to have that? So no one else can use your toilet? What's the point of that?
Know how often the toilets were used and by whom, so we can carry it against their electronic health record and know if they got, an illness. If we mitigated that illness that was based on bad sanitation. And that is the aberration of the world of people who think they can engineer everything. I mean, it's a sickness, and that's why I keep sort of getting back to it. I think it's a Western sickness of like the brain of having that level of control.
Allison, can you just say what the Internet of Things and the Internet of Bodies is?
Sure. Okay. So the internet, so they have developed sensors that transmit information. It can be just very simple information or complex. So our phone is an Internet of Things. Like it's like the most common one, right? And there's a lot of data that is collected. But they're actually putting sensors as small as dust into everything, like pavement. Like they're in Colorado, they're trialing sensors in highway pavement. So as you drive on it, like there's data interfaces going on. And there's like huge concerns over also the EMF radiation related to all of this signaling. And we're mostly water, right? So all of these waves, many scientists have expressed concern to the World Health Organization, the United Nations about this, but all of the United Nations are in on the game of the fourth industrial revolution, and they're not going to, it runs on the Internet of Things. the Internet of Things is what will make augmented reality. But it could be as simple as a QR code. It doesn't actually have to be super sophisticated, because that's the thing, and it holds data. You're in this store and it links to the date, right? So they can be very low tech. Michael Bloomberg actually put a bunch of unhoused people on blockchain in Austin for a pilot as part of ID 2020. It's just a QR code. Like, they gave the unhoused people, I guess they didn't feel like giving them a phone, so they just gave them a laminated card with a QR code on it that would have all their data that would be unlocked. So that's generally the Internet of Things, but smart street lamps, right? Like, that's part of it is an urban infrastructure. If you've noticed a lot of the new LED street lamps going in, I mean, maybe not out here, but in the cities, they're putting them in everywhere. Philadelphia, and this is why I kind of love Philadelphia, is because we're so half-assed about things. That gives me some hope. Like, our first smart infrastructure was big belly trash cans. These, like, they were supposed to sell, like, I'm full, I'll compress myself, and then eventually send a signal for someone to come pick me up. And it was supposed to be efficiency but we never plugged them in, I think. So they just sat there like regular trash cans. So, like, it does give me some hope that, like, but, like, who would think that, like, this stupid trash can is, like, part of the, like, militarized takeover of the world? Like, you wouldn't really, like, I hate those stupid trash cans. But, like, that's how they start. Smart trash cans, smart lights, smart pavement. I think they're talking smart paint. But it's, and what's so upsetting about it is it's all being pitched as sustainable, right? And it's green. We're going to have green smart cities. But yeah, efficient, cost, but they don't talk about, like, the energy, the water to cool the data centers, the child, miners in Congo mining the minerals that we're, like, taking over Brazil for the lithium, or Bolivia for the lithium. Like, that once we have all these devices, like all these Chromebooks, it's a planned obsolescence. They don't last maybe 2 years and then they go in the landfill. Like, it's not green. They want to say it's green, but it's all set up this way because the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, of which there are 17, and unless you actually look at them, most of them are poverty management. They're about people. They're not actually about the environment. Like, they're not really about water. Like, they're about 4 or 5 that are actually about, like, air and water and things. The rest are people, managing people. And it's being managed for financial markets that I'll talk about further. But all of it has to be run through a device or it doesn't work for the financial markets. So they're going to tell everyone, Greta is going to go out and tell everyone that we have to, be green and swallow our nano pills so that we can have the best telemedicine, in this new fourth industrial revolution world, when really it's a very twisted and toxic environment that they're building. Oh, sorry, did I lose it? There you go. Okay. So Internet of Bodies, I guess that's also is the nano pills. Like, so some of it is wearable tech, and I'm going to talk about that later. I mean, wearable tech really is kind of like your phone in your pocket at a basic level, but the Fitbits, now they have brainwave monitoring headbands, like, for meditation and biofeedback. But even, like, swallowing, like, they have, like, medications with Internet of Things pill caps so that they know if you took your pill or not, or at least if you opened the cap or not. But they actually are talking about, like, having things that you swallow. And then with Profusa and those biosensors, like, ultimately that's an Internet of Bodies thing where it blends with this hydrogel inside of you and you resonate with this mechanized energy source, 5G, 6G, what have you.
Just remember, guys, if you're following me and you're new, anytime they use the word sustainable, it's a programmed word to make you guys think that is a good word that we want. We want to have sustainable energy. Sustainable. Red flag. Anytime they use sustainable to get you to do something, oh, it's so great. We are going to have a sustainable planet. Red flag. So they say, but that's just a conspiracy theory.
And so that is coming out of the World Economic Forum. Like, I'm not making this up. It's not just like a cute phrase that I use. They have a whole white paper called the Internet of Bodies. And that's how they talk about people. Like, because.
Okay, so people think it's really weird that they can inject something into your body and be able to track you. Okay. My dog had a chip. He ran away. He was, how old was he? I think he might have been 4 months old. No, he might have been a little bit bigger than that. But anyway, he ran away and he looked like a bull mastiff, even though he was a boxer lab and the sweetest boy in the whole world. Well, they told me that if I got his balls cut off and I had to put a chip into him, they wouldn't charge me a fine, right? Because he ended up the dog pound. So I did that, but they insert this chip into him. And I don't think it was equipped with GPS, but I guarantee they have that technology now. So they've kind of been practicing with our animals. So to the thought of them inserting a chip inside a human body, to me, does not seem unrealistic. But to swallow one, what, to keep track of your gut biome? Like, I don't understand, because I would think that you'd eventually poop it out, unless I don't see how that would work inside by swallowing it. Or you swallow a pill and it scans your body for everything, and then it dissolves, you poop it out. I don't know how that's going to work. But the fact of like, I used to think that, like, they're not going to have us put a chip in us. Like, that's just stupid. Like, they're not going to do that. That is wacky world. Wackadoo.
They're not planning to be in the internet bodies. Like, they probably, like Richard Branson, he's got his Necker Island down in the Caribbean. Like, they're not going to be in the internet bodies. We're going to be in the internet bodies. So, anyway, I just wanted to put this, the reimagining, right? So who is reimagining? Well, there you go. So Eric Schmidt. And Eric Schmidt is reimagining us as his mining commodities. Like, pretty much. That's what Eric Schmidt is reimagining us. And look, everybody's going to be reskilled so that we can mine one another. Geofencing, I don't know if you guys are familiar with the concept of geofencing, but, you know, for me, it was really interesting. I didn't know about Operation Paperclip, like, until recently, like when I was looking at all this in terms of, like, post-World War II, when a lot of the Nazi scientists were brought over into the US and, like, polished.
Okay, don't lie. How many of you guys are newbies to that? Mine is in the last 7 months. Less than that. 5 months. Raise your hand if you're new to Operation Paperclip. And guys, this is a good opportunity that if you have not watched my Operation Gladio, you should go back to that. And I have covered Operation Paperclip. I've covered World War I, World War II. We've progressed through a lot of different topics with my own thoughts and weirdisms in there in the process. And it's just my weird brain, and I'm just weird. So you do your own research, but it's out there. But if you really want to know Operation Paperclip even deeper than Anne Jacobs' book, Anne Jacobson's book, it's called Operation Paperclip. She's one of the few writers that's actually gone through, and she went to the countries, she went to the families, and she did actual research by interviewing descendants of these people. Some people would talk to her and some people wouldn't. That is a great read. Lots and lots of information. So I would recommend a chapter at a time, very slowly.
Up and put in important positions. And Werner von Braun, like, was the head of NASA. And so essentially this global digital jail is going to be run from space. And that's why all of these satellite constellations are going up right now. Kuiper and Musk's and all of these different ones. And so the prison is run on satellites. And so if you understand, it's kind of crazy, but if you reimagine the US space program is run by the Nazis, like, it makes a lot more sense, like how this arc of this trajectory is going. But and that's to get all of the places that don't have the 5G. You know, people say, oh, Allison, you know, it's not in the developing world. Well, they're going to get them on the satellites. That's how they're going to get them. But the geofencing is this real-time GPS. So, like, really, all the GPS stuff, it gets really creepy when you start saying, like, they know where you are in real time, right? And they can predict you in real time. Geofencing used to be used for marketing, right? And
so this is something that this is still conspiracy theories, but one theory is that the reason why they're letting these people come into this country, whether they cause havoc or not, I don't know, that people speculate on that all the time. And Elon is so advocating against it and so against this border being open. And there has been rumors that he will come up with a solution to that, to where we won't have to put up a border because they will have geofencing capabilities, maybe. I don't know. It's a thought, though.
They would put a designation with geolocation coordinates. And if you would, like, have a device on your phone and walk into an area, it would, like, ping, like, here's a special offer on a burrito or something, you know, or the museums would do them. Like, you walk next to this painting and ping, there's something on your phone.
You can scan it with QR code.
So they started off with the geofencing, but now it's morphed, right? And so I think they actually had Minority Report. I don't know if you remember the scene, like, he's walking through and they're like, oh, how did you like that t-shirt you bought? You know, like, everything is very personalized, and it's based on geolocation data and your past history of data. But now they're talking about actually connecting it to these distance, like wearable technology distance things. So then it starts to get really weird if you start to think about like your pets
Wearable
and the electronic fencing, right?
technology.
And like the livestock. And I used to think it was really like my husband a couple years ago, I don't know, back when it was like a novelty, the great white sharks were tagged and they had names, and you'd be like, oh, where is Kate the shark? Oh, they're off the coast of Florida. Isn't that interesting? Oh, they're now off North Carolina. Well, and actually my child is in college now, and they took a class on science from space, and they were tracking wildlife populations. And I'm like,
Wildlife
for
populations.
them, right? Like that's where it's going. So as they have done to the wild animals.
So conclusion there, guys, anything that they're doing with their wildlife, their movements, their habits, their eating schedule, they can do the same to us eventually. So Merck, you guys know that the owner, just FYI, that big ship that crashed into the Francis Scott Key Bridge was owned by Merck. Just in case anybody was wondering that, because I'm a big nerd and stupid information sticks.
Yeah, so we're in. I don't know if you've heard of James Kilgore. I've been in touch with him. He's an activist around incarceration, and I was like, James, this is what it is. We have to look at domestic livestock management, like satellite management of domestic livestock, because that's where it's going. Like that's what it's going to look like. And so you can see this is like context-aware devices and integrated smart environments. But you can see there's the your transit, your
track and trace,
machine arm, industrial thing, the transmitters, and you can't. If you're on the highways these days, you can't not see a 5G tower now. I drove out halfway.
You know how they did track and trace during so she did put this 3 years ago. It's 2024. So she did this in 2021. And her research she said she researched for like 4 years, it was like 4 years of collective data. But you guys remember that fancy website that John Hopkins put together? John Hopkins put together this great website where like it had like this, you could go on there every single day. You can see how far that one virus had spread all over the world. And it was like a couple of the United States, there was China, and then there was that ship, and every single day it was exploding everywhere. But they were able supposedly to come up with this interactive map within like 2 months where they can do like track and trace type stuff. Yeah, so you're saying they're doing livestock, but just think about how far advanced that this technology already is.
Across the country early on during this, and you were never outside the sightline of a 5G tower on the highways now. And drones, right? And then the robots. So up the river from where I work, Penn has a lab called Pennovation, where their GRASP lab, their engineering lab, is building hive mind drones for the Army, right? And so, but they promise they're only going to use them for good things, like saving people, from building collapses or something like that. I don't know. But like, once you start thinking about hive mind drones for the Army and satellites and knowing your bus route and things, like it starts getting a bit Black Mirror pretty quick. So yeah, so this is just essentially talking about managed from space. But the United Nations goal 11 is sustainable cities, and there's the Office of Space Affairs. Like, so there is a very direct connection between the smart city operations and the satellite functioning. And that's why, again, if we think about pollution, like essentially we are polluting all of the atmosphere with these satellites and the energy that's going to be going along with it. And it's just how it's framed. They want to frame it as like efficient and liberating and
efficient,
and saying that it's
sustainable,
not.
equitable.
So, Common Pass. I don't know. This has been getting more play. Most people are talking about this part. It's important to understand the Rockefeller Foundation's role in all of this. And for people who are more familiar than I was, like in public health, like, Rockefeller, that was, the beginning of, taking over holistic medicine and like shoving it to the side and selling, these snake oil treatments or whatever. But they're also, Rockefeller is key in the impact investing space, which is all around the human capital bond markets. And, they funded with Bloomberg, I think, the modules to train the contact tracers that Johns Hopkins developed those. Like, imagine how that happened, right? But they don't want to just control the air travel. Like, they want to control your access to education and employment and also your health, which is going to be those biosensors eventually. You know, it may take them 5 years, like at the end of the whole COVID scheme, 5-year scheme, we'll have the biosensors, but it's much bigger than that. And so this was sort of like a sleeper organization. I looked back, it seems like they got set up last August, and they had one tweet, like a retweet in September, and then went quiet. And then in April came back online. And in July, they have a global board of 60 people. And it's really worthwhile looking to see who their board is, because it is global. And again, none of this just happened. None of this just like popped up.
Okay, so this is the key, guys. This is the key that I have to keep saying. This is not isolated to Pennsylvania or New York, but she's using those areas as an example because they're testing grounds. And they're going to get into my state where I live pretty soon, which I really think that they target Utah a lot, is because if you were to be here and you were to see most of the population, you would understand that most of the families here are genuinely raising their kids. There's always outliers, like there's outliers that are not into family, but Utah is really big on family. And because of that, we're not so much paying attention to the government unless it directly impacts us. And so far it hasn't. So there's things they do behind the scenes that we as citizens aren't aware of, because we're just like, oh, whatever. We don't go looking into things. Like I didn't, but it's there. It happens. But this is global. This is on a global scale. They're talking global. One global goal.
Up in like in 2 months, they've got this going. It's been planned well in advance. And this is the geofencing, right? So you've got your phone, they can tell you where you go. And one of the things I keep trying to convey to people working on like the immigration issues, right? I'm like, they can make a border wherever they want in real time, based on whatever information they have. Like, I mean, they have to make it socially acceptable.
Whatever they want.
I thought it was going to be harder to make stuff like this socially acceptable. It seems like, you know, people are going along, but really in the future, like the border can be your front door. Like they can make the border your front door, because these folks, this is transnational global capital, which is not to say that geopolitics in and of itself isn't a thing and that we can just dismiss it. Like certainly there's still geopolitics at play, but Jack Ma and the Rockefeller Foundation and Deutsche Bank and the Vatican Bank and, you know, Michael Bloomberg, they're all in the same game. They're in the team.
Oh, she just did it. She's one of the few people that said it out loud without saying it out loud. Right there, right now, she's explaining Operation Gladio, all those things that she just connected the dots on, and we just covered it. And when I'm not done covering it, I just took a little sabbatical because I had to like, whoa, this is crazy. But she just connected it. You have the CIA. You have those groups. You have those groups of people that she just listed. But the key was the Vatican Bank. Okay, people don't know this, but that is the most private, most secure bank in the world. And there's been a lot of people that have helped make it that way. It's in Vatican City. It is run by, you have to be in a certain position to even enter the bank or even make deposits or withdrawals from the bank. All records are destroyed. You cannot subpoena anything from that bank. And if you did, you wouldn't find it because the records are stored. Money goes into there. Vatican takes 15% off the top. It goes into other banks, right? Other people get their money, and the Vatican owns other banks, right? And money goes back. But it's the number one way of getting funding. And I haven't heard anybody put that connection in there. She didn't tie it together. And I can't on YouTube. So go watch my series. As I designed it to where you don't have to watch it. You can just listen to it while you multitask. And it is fairly lengthy. Anyway, continuing on.
Here, right? They're in this top tier coordinating this program globally. So for us, like what I would really like to see is a global movement in opposition, because clearly Common Pass is not global. And again, just speaking to understanding pass systems, right? Like, let us look, how were pass systems used in the past, right? How are they used in apartheid South Africa? How are they used on Indian reservations? How are they being used, you know, in Gaza, right? These pass systems are used to control and limit people's mobility. So all the data, Internet of Things, sensors, all this thing, it doesn't do a thing for people like Michael Bloomberg if it doesn't go somewhere. So disconnected data, it might have a little bit of use. It's not terribly useful. It's the relationships among the data that are really helpful in making the predictive analytics and creating value. Like it's you know, I guess like different grades of oil or whatever, you know, or different grades of diamonds, right? They want the good stuff, and the good stuff is interoperable data. So what they need is the blockchain identity. And sometimes they call it self-sovereign identity, like they want to make us feel sovereign. But essentially, once we agree to this, it's like,
oh my God. Okay. Guys, I really apologize for keep pushing pause, but these are things that are not being said out loud that you have to be told. But you guys do your own research. These are only my thoughts. Nobody, you do not take it where I'm saying. I am trying to debunk this conspiracy theorists that they have going on here. But the daily HODL, so it is news and insight for the digital economy. So HODL. But UNICEF's first blockchain investment amply ensures that South Africa, who do they experiment on and practice on? South Africa early childhood development centers get the funding they need. So UNICEF. Oh, I think I remember. Where did I hear this? Oh, I'm going to have to go back and do some. There's more. There's a lot more to this, but put that into your mental break, your mental cap to do some extra research on this. I think she's going to go into it, but holy crap. I missed this today for some reason.
we've agreed to become their commodities. And they're very sneaky in how they're setting it up, because they're saying, look, you know, privacy, you want your privacy, right? Like, and why should Facebook be making money off you? You could be your own brand. You could have your own digital identity and like groom yourself, like from an early age, maybe even before you're born, because we can get, you know, we can know like, you know, how your mom acted like while she was carrying you, and feed it all into your digital brand. And so this is really happening. And right now, for the past 5 years, they've been doing pilot projects, right? They have to be able to, they need to be able to scale it, and they need to make it socially acceptable. So among these pilot projects, one of the first ones I saw was Amply, which is in South Africa. Again,
okay, Amply
is highly racialized. IXO Foundation and Innovation Edge, I believe, they set up franchise pre-K, and it's very simple. This is a very early stage.
Okay, does somebody, so I read you guys the definition of what blockchain was. Okay, you know, so she gave us that whole list of it. Is it, and when they talk about digital blockchain, is it like, I don't know if people understand blockchain, and I need to understand it. And I guess I'm just asking questions. So if someone knows a more, you can't hear me? Am I muted? Yeah, never mind. Okay, Julian Spazin. Just kidding. I love you. But if anybody knows how this, is it the same application when it comes to computer and technology? But anyway, okay. But anyway, I was just curious, because it's going to be really important, really relevant. And I think I need to be able to understand it at a low level and then explain it, how it works to technology, because they're going to start using this type of technology on us. So anyway, so if anyone knows that, let me know, DM me or email me or whatever.
They would reimburse the child care provider for every day the child attended preschool. And the child was put on blockchain, the school was put on blockchain, the teachers are put on blockchain. And they said, oh, we don't want to do paper anymore. You know, it's too messy, paper. Let's just have an app. So it's every app, the kid went in, and a blockchain token moved over to get a reimbursement. And they framed it as helping the children build social capital, that the children will be building social capital in preschool. But then also they probably have something knowing, like, did the family bring the kids in late? Or are they skipping out? Like all of these other things. So, and this is backed by UNICEF too. So again, the UN.
UNICEF.
And this is UN Sustainable Development Goal 3 is education. The state of Illinois, which is, I'm sorry.
Okay, just remember that, okay, UNICEF, the WHO, what is the health program in, there's one in UK, gosh, I should know these off the top of my head, but I can't. And the one in Africa. Anyway, UNICEF, UN, they all have a very nice donor, guys, in common. So UNICEF is a very good, they are very lucky to have donations from the BMG.
Sorry, this is so crummy, but this upper one, the fan, they did a working group in 2018 about blockchain, imagining all the different ways they could use blockchain. And they set up an agreement with Evernym, which is based in Salt Lake City, to do blockchain birth certificates. Okay, so that's early phase.
Salt Lake City.
Then there's another company called Idemia. We're starting to see rollout of digital driver's licenses. And that's the big thing that's coming next. Is augmented identity. Idemia is talking augmented identity. And the first blockchain baby. So this is very insidious in Tanzania, and this is part of humanitarian aid, and like MasterCard is connected to this stuff. If you comply with all your prenatal checkups, you earn. It's kind of this weird mashup with like your loyalty cards, you know. It's
Why do they want you to do all of your prenatal checkups? I mean, yes, go do your prenatal checkups are important, but my doctor that I had with my son, I loved him because he was so old school. Like the one that I had with my daughter, I got ultrasounds all the time, and he's like, you don't need that garbage. Your baby doesn't need that garbage. He gets his tape measure and he measures your belly, and he's like, oh, you're about this many months pregnant. Seems like you're getting good growth. That's what he did. Checked my blood pressure. That was it. Just made sure my belly was growing. That was it. Right. And I only had the one big ultrasound to make sure there was all the toes and all of the, you know, the things there that are supposed to be there. But I don't know, like having to go, yeah, prenatal care is important. Like I'm not saying don't do that, because you should. I just feel like everything has become so much. Does your baby need to do you really need to have ultrasound every time you go to the doctor every month? Have radiation going through you? But I don't know. I'm not telling you not to do that, but I just feel like there's so much intrusion, and just to track that. Why are they tracking that? Just seems really odd.
See at the drugstore, your grocery store, or whatever, like you prove yourself and they log it, and then you get a shit credit. So they're like, if you do all your appointments, you can earn a token for an umbrella and trade it for an umbrella. But they put the women and unborn children on blockchain in Tanzania. And this is like framed as humanitarian aid. And again, I had mentioned about Bloomberg and the people in Austin on blockchain. So these things are going. And what I'm trying to say, like.
So our favorite doctor, or our favorite not doctor, that's a doctor. They've tried to get him outed from that country all the time. And every time that they think that they can get him to stop meddling with this humanitarian aid, instead of being like Mr. Beast, who went, was it 500 or 5,000 wells for water? He went and he installed himself and he filmed it, and he got almost canceled over it. So he actually went and did humanitarian aid. So you having blockchain tracking your how often do you go to the doctor for prenatal care, and you get an umbrella as a reward. This is what they do in these other countries, right? They're a population of people that they have zero respect for, which is very shameful. And they use them to such a degree that they don't want that person there. But every single person either goes against it and wants to stop these things, no longer is roaming the world or they all of a sudden are stinking rich. One of the two. It happens. Right?
I'm trying to scream really loud because people are like, that's in South Africa. That's the next phase, actually, that's even scarier is IO2 Foundation in Kansai City. They're doing facial recognition. Like they have these smart contracts that like click that something happened, and they're doing home visits. So the past 5 to 10 years, they've been putting home visit legislation all over the country to get into people's homes. And it sounds good, only it's not. So they'll go into people's homes with an iPad and film them being a good parent. And it will fulfill this investment contract. And so that was being piloted in China and Boa Vista, Brazil. So these programs are out there. They're backed with the UN, with hedge funds. The guy, IO2 Foundation, he was, educated in Hong Kong, Columbia University, and London School of Economics. Like these are worldly people. They travel amongst each other and they plan these things out. And imagine essentially having an officer of the state come in your house and tell you if you're parenting appropriately and put it on video with your facial recognition and your children's facial recognition, and have that be tied to global investment markets. I mean, it's abominable, but if they get away with it in a cloud-based world, once you have the model, it could be uploaded in anywhere in the world in a month, shorter than that. Like it's not physically like, oh, we have to build this whole, it's software as service. Once they build it, they can put it anywhere. That's why we need to all be together on this. So anyway,
So how is it? So IO2 Block Express. So there's the IO1 and IO2. Block Express are provisioned IOPS SSD volumes. So IO2 Block Express can deliver high throughput and IOPS and support. I guess I don't know what IOPS is. I'm learning some new technology words today. I'll have to look into that a little bit more, but it kind of seems like it's blockchain. Because on Amazon you can store. Let's see. Okay, I'll look into that more, but that kind of seems very interesting.
These are, they're talking about COVID credentials on blockchain. If you look up, I mean, this is one of the COVID credentials members, but there were like 60. I can't even, I couldn't even put them all in little sis. It's just too tiring and exhausting. But you see Evernym, you see digital twinning. This is I Respond, which is humanitarian aid. And then this one is learning economy, which is essentially about creating a currency and training tokens. And all of this stuff is about tokenizing things. So we're moving to a world of globalization where there's not actually, I mean, we know they're pushing the Fed, dollars, these digital dollars, the central banking digital dollar system. It's going to be like script. It really is.
This is 3 years ago, guys. I cannot reiterate this enough. This was put out 3 years ago. I can't even, I know we're a lot more advanced. This is just the surface. Title: Protecting consumers, renters, homeowners, and people experiencing homelessness. Digital dollar, electronic unit of value, digital currency, CBDCs. Hi, Ford. How are you? You had to do your taxes. I just filed an extension. Mr. What's his name? Zelensky can get my money in August. That's what I'm going to say. He can wait till August to get my money. I'm waiting to see if I can use it as a tax write-off. It hasn't happened yet, so I'm still waiting on that. Yeah, I want to go into CBDC, but I do have a listening audience for just a second. I'm going to try not to go off on this tangent too long, but remind me to talk about this more in the future. So CBDC, when the dollar actually finally collapses, what they're going to do is they're going to sell it to us American people that this is a great thing. So instead of moving it to the Federal Reserve, right, which is where where money is right now, what they're going to do is make you think that it's going to be on Wall Street. But what they're going to do is have the same people that are the Fed be in charge of it at Wall Street. So it's going to be big cover. That's just my assumption from lots of different data points and different people I've listened to. I'm not an expert on it, okay? But watch for that. So if they're trying to convince you that it's going to be this free market, it's going to be good, it's going to be just like having cash, you're going to invest in Wall Street, blah, 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 blah. Pay attention to who's going to be running it. And I do have videos on that, and we can watch them at some time if you guys want to. But anyway.
It's going to be like script that's coming. Like that won't even be like dollars and things. You'll you have 3 coins for your housing this month. And then they can change it up, and they're already tracking in China social credit scoring and parolees on blockchain and smart environments. So imagine, and this is what people need to know for the the Bar Association. The first social impact bond in the US was at Rikers Island, and it was around youth incarceration and recidivism. And so Bloomberg brought it over from the UK for Goldman Sachs. Just a second.
She's got to clear her throat. She needs some water.
I know it's a lot.
Me too.
So essentially, I know we'll talk about this later. This is cost offset, ginormous, like prison industrial complex cost offset, and they're going to be reskilling all of these people. So imagine you're being put on parole, and all the nonprofits that are servicing you on your reentry are all investment markets, right? And imagine the world is a global digital prison, right? Where poverty is still criminalized. And they don't actually want to build all of those giant jails. Because when I was researching schools, I realized these crazy people, they don't want bricks and mortar schools. They want Pokemon Go education where you don't actually have schools, you don't have buildings, you just wander around and collect points, and then occasionally drop in somewhere and have someone give you a consultation on how well you're doing. That's their vision for school. And the same people at the MacArthur Foundation are in prison reform. And I'm like, what are they doing in prison reform? No one's going to build enough prisons to hold all the people displaced by the fourth industrial revolution. They don't want to build that many prisons. They'll just turn the world into a prison. The people who can be off that have their own island without the internet of bodies, and then criminalize poverty and create pathways, and all the nonprofits process the people on the pathways for impact investors. And so really these returning citizens are just a cash cow for the processing. And they're never supposed to actually get out of the system, because then they're
encourage. So another way to promote cooperation between prison industry stakeholders and reformers would be to encourage private prison cooperations and unions to diversify their expertise into such related markets as treatment, rehabilitation, education, and diversionary approaches. Diversified stakeholders would be less adamantly, I haven't even heard of that word before, adamantly opposed to decarceration, because they would also benefit from alternative programs designed to reduce incarceration. For example, just as some private companies are already investing in electronic monitoring. Ooh, guys, everyone in here, if you are an investor, you guys should probably start investing in that. You can make some money. They could also be motivated to invest in rehabilitation and reentry programs, such as step-down approaches and treatment for substance abuse or mental illness. Coalition builders looking to accomplish prison reform should encourage prison industry stakeholders to invest in these related markets. Oh my gosh, how-to guide to make money. Thank you.
our market dries up, which really stinks. So it's important to know there's 10 digital nations. I don't think we're a digital nation, but like Canada, the UK, Australia, Portugal, Uruguay, Israel, South Korea, there's a couple others. They're all going full on e-government, digital identity with your digital driver's license. Oh, Estonia. So Estonia is the model. Estonia is the model blockchain country, little tiny Tesla. And that's the crazy thing. It's like the Nordic socialist stuff, because they actually have the benefits that can be co-opted and people are used to having them. So then there's just like, oh, it's super convenient, like Sweden and the chipping. It's totally enmeshed in all of this. But this is from the Israel's digital government plan. And like, I was just looking over that because Israel is actually running the Rhode Island COVID reopen. Like, nobody's talking about that. I'm like, why is the Israeli health department running Gina Raimondo's COVID reopen program? And I'm going to be writing up stuff on that. There's a webinar on my YouTube channel that you can just watch. But like, so let's look at, they're modeling all this stuff on Israel and talking about Estonia and Israel. But they've lifted up this national rights engine, right? The national rights engine. And so I think it's being framed as like these.
Okay, I'm sorry. Hopefully that's not a bad pausing area, but I want to talk about this while it's still relevant. Okay, guys. Hi, Michelle. Welcome. So right now, currently, there are 158 private prisons in the United States as of June 23rd. So the 158 private prisons in the U.S. hold some 96,730 inmates, approximately 8% of the total state and federal prison population. And I do not know how many of you guys know how private prisons work, but a private prison, guys, hi, Macklin, welcome. In a private prison, guys, if I were to go to prison right now and it was winter time and I was going to say Antarctica and I didn't have any money for commissary or family to give me money for stuff, I would go without blankets. I would go without extra things. And they have 158 of those in the United States, which means someone like Bloomberg or someone like, I don't know who owns these, but I that would be an interesting search project to do as well, is to look into how many private owned prisons there are and who owns them. And yeah. Anyway, I just wanted to say that because they were talking about prisons and, just all the ways that even these private prisons would benefit by having ankle monitors, by reform programs, by step down programs, and by other different things. and the free labor that they get. If in California, why did Kamala Harris never let people out of prison for like marijuana, even though she said she would? Because they became firefighters. They were able to leave and be trained to be firefighters in California. So it was free labor.
These are your benefits. Like these are your public benefits. But everybody gets a different one, right? Like depending on who you are. And so if you imagine a smart world where your rights and privileges are tokenized on blockchain, like whether you can cross your front door or not, whether you can go to school or not, everything is a token and everything is a right or a privilege that you have or you don't have. At what point do constitutional rights or civil rights, do they all get usurped by blockchain smart contracts? But of course they're coming out the gate like, look at all these things we have for you. Aren't these all very nice things? Only some of you don't get them, and like maybe you have rights when you leave, in the morning, but you end up speaking out on behalf of your rights. And when you come back, your retinal scan on your affordable housing pod doesn't work. That's what, and again, am I saying it's all going to happen? I can't say that it's all going to happen, but I think people need to understand the technology is there, that it definitely could happen if we're not speaking out. So this is just more about blockchain, but this is from this crazy timeline of Pavel Luksha, the Global Education Futures on their website. They have a timeline, but they actually talk about people nairs, that fortune's made up of people. And this is the thing I have that's a bit of a challenge with me, like being on someone who's like leans more left with like the free market libertarians, is I think there's a whole group of people who are just like, leave us alone, just leave us alone. We have our own town, do our own thing, have our own markets, like fine. That's not how it's going to go. It's the Peter Thiel, big L libertarians that are essentially going to start using these blockchain platforms to invest in people as commodities. And so this is a diagram of how this works with a payment by result system, Alice. Alice is a blockchain investment platform in poverty. So this is the kind of stuff Peter Thiel libertarians are going to be investing in people's poverty. And then this is another sort of free market libertarian.
Okay, she's not going to talk about it. Gosh, why didn't she just say this? Because people don't necessarily know this and can't read all this. So we have the donation contract. Oh my gosh, I can't read it. Okay, never mind, guys. Okay, let's make it big. Okay, I'll make it big on the screen. Hold on. I love getting old. Love it. Okay, it's still hard to read. She didn't pick very good font, which I've done this before, so I can't blame her. So you have the donation contract contains escrow payment and refund logic, donor account ledger, pays for goal, social org, go down here, goal validation request, aims protocol, validator. So you had validates goals. Okay, so validator validates the goals, goes through this protocol. Okay, I reports impact data, donors, conditional donations. Okay, I'm going to have to read this more. I thought that I could read it to you and I would make it make sense. So I can't make it make sense, which just means I have to do more research on it to understand it, which is good. Another research thing to add to my list. Anyway, continuing on. Let's see if I can go 5 minutes without pausing.
Libertarian publication out of Idaho. And essentially it's sort of like a community blockchain currency, only like you can be invested in like by your church or local like rich people. And you can program money. You can actually program the money. And that's what I'm talking about script, is that in Australia, several years ago, they put their disability benefits on blockchain as programmable money. It's called Making Money Smart. You can look up the white paper. So essentially they're talking about making it all conditional. And you can imagine that you get a digital wallet of tokens for your benefits, but it's all conditional. And then if those benefits are privatized and put in the impact space, people can gamble on you. Yeah.
Maybe that's what this is. Because I didn't understand any of the words you just said about the last slide.
Okay.
But maybe it's going to be answered here.
Yeah.
I don't understand how someone makes money off my poverty.
Yeah, I will get there. Yeah, I'll get there. It's hard to say which thing first. So I'm like, so blockchain, it's important to understand blockchain interoperability data in smart environments as commodities. And I have a good diagram that talks about that. But this is just one example in which these pay for success finances were creative financing in Connecticut, because all like tons of hedge funds in Connecticut. They set up this intervention with women who had were flagged for substance use and child protective service involvement. And so Yale came up with an intervention, evidence-based intervention for these women. But these women made $10,000 a year, right? They're like single women, like trying to raise a family in Connecticut on $10,000 a year. And nobody was giving them any more money, but they were going to have them pee in a cup several times a week and do an intervention. And the deal for that was if they met the performance contract results, this was a government performance-based contract, the investors got payback, like met their performance targets. So in this particular instance, among the investors was BNP Paribas Bank and QBE Insurance in Australia, right? So essentially these women in their situation, their, health situation, their family situation became embedded within a global marketplace. So let me talk to you.
I had to use the restroom real quick and I made it back in time and I could hear everything, but okay. Two things. So programmable money, meaning like they would know, so it'd be digitized. And based off of certain behaviors, they would know exactly what I have. And I can only spend this much money because it'd be programmable. And they would know exactly what I spend. So once this 3 tokens is gone for food, it's gone. I don't get any more because of my social behavior or whatnot. And depending on your social behavior, they could take these things away. So blockchain is just pretty much programmable money. It's programmed and it's all automized. Okay, that makes sense. Okay, hopefully that made sense to you, but in my head it makes sense, I think. 2, where she was just talking about the welfare system or women who are making $10,000 a month and they were only getting a certain amount of, that's all the money they were getting, right? And they had to pee in a cup in order to continue to get these benefits or whatnot. Excuse me. This is the bill that they just passed in California. This is 3 years ago. She's saying this is a possibility. So they're trying to make it so if you're going to be on any kind of financial assistance from the government, you have to pee in a cup and you have to do certain things. So I think that was exactly what she was just explaining. And I didn't make it 5 minutes to pause. Sorry.
To you about how that works. Okay. I'll skip that. But here's John Trudeau. John Trudeau essentially was talking about the guerrilla theater of politics and the audience getting to participate, which I thought was really good for now. So I'll skip a little bit. Some people call this, we're just talking about industrial engineered society. Some people are talking about communitarianism and imitazione, technocracy, which Howard Scott, that was out of Columbia University School of Industrial Engineering in Davos. So this thing that is coming is called stakeholder capitalism, the era of stakeholder capitalism. And I thought that sort of gives stakeholder capitalism. There you go. So I know about stakeholder capitalism because they created it Judith Rodin, who is the former president of the University of Pennsylvania where I live, created it.
2009.
She was the president of the Rockefeller Foundation. And she set it up as the Global Impact Investment Network in the years leading up to the last economic crash, which created the stage for poverty by destabilizing everything. And the companies that are going to play this game that we're talking about, the game of pay for success finance that I'll get into, and to become stakeholder capitalists, which is making money off of dispossessed people, you need rules. And the rules are the metrics. Because if you have no rules, no one's going to play. And it doesn't really matter what the rules are as long as they all agree that those are the rules. So if you haven't seen The Big Short, the movie The Big Short, watch that movie. The Big Short. One is
The Big Short.
Toddlers and poor people are The Big Short. But the thing about that is the game goes on as long as the rich people all agree to the rules, even if they make no sense. And that's important to know because people will say that doesn't make any sense. And I think it doesn't really matter. If you're rich and you set the rules and you have the police and the military and the politicians in your pocket, you can play that game. And so that's the game that's coming. So the Rockefeller Foundation funded something called the B Lab, which is in Berwyn, Pennsylvania, which is out on the main line. And they set all of the rules for this new interdependence in the stakeholder. And this is they put this up. They were proud of this. This was in their document. Like this wasn't this is how they chose to represent themselves. That's what I'm just saying. Like,
2007.
this isn't like a parody of them. This was their document. Like, this is their document from
2007,
2009.
2009.
So, and it kind of disappeared for a while, and then I found it again.
A new corporation for new economy.
Yeah.
Intradependent.
So anyway, Philly, we're going to be an impact economy. We have a lot of poverty. Let me get my diagram. Okay. All right. So it's a plumbing problem. It's a circulation problem, right? So capitalism, for it to keep going, it has to flow. The money has to flow. How does capital circulate if nobody is making any money and everybody's in debt? Then you can't buy. You can never. And the world is finite resources, right? We're gonna run out of stuff. Well, essentially, what you do is you create a new game where the poor can be gambled on as investment commodities. So that's what's coming. And you do it by partnering government and nonprofits and investors. So it's this public-private partnership program. So that's what you do when you have a lot of debt and poverty, which we have even ever more of with COVID. So they call this several things. They first started out calling them, in the very beginning, in the mid-1990s, Arthur Rolnick, who is an economist at the Minneapolis Fed, and this guy, Stephen Rothschild, created performance-based government contracts, right? It seemed fine, right? The government would pay for outsourcing if metrics were met, and everybody liked it because the conservatives said, well, we're getting a good stuff for our money. And the liberals said, oh, this is great because people are getting taken care of. So it was bipartisan. So
Okay. Hold on just a second. Okay, so she was just talking about interdependence and how it relates to economy. I think they've been doing this I think this has been their goal for a really, really long time, and it's just taken them a long time to make it work. So think of it more on like a global scale. So economic interdependence is a situation where two or more parties. So instead of thinking of this of like parties and companies, think of it like countries. Think of it like China. So situation where two or more parties, individuals, businesses, companies, countries, etc., depend upon each other for the exchange of goods and the fulfillment of their necessities. So think about it right now. All of our medication, most of our medicines are made in India and China, right? So if any of those countries have issues, we had that issue with penicillin. We used to have that stuff here, but we don't. So we are dependent upon them for those goods. So if we were to go to war, have some kind of issue with them or some kind of a transportation issue, how would we get that fulfillment? Think of something else that we don't have here anymore. I mean, our automotive industry is going to Mexico, but they don't want us to have automobiles anymore anyway. But it's like they want us to be, instead of being independent as a country like we used to be, we are reliant on other countries for different goods and services, which ties into globalism. She's talking about it more on a different level, but what she's saying right now is connecting to me on more of a global scale. They want us interdependent upon each other. So if we cut any one of these people off, then we're SOL. And they did this a lot with South America during the 1975, 1985, when there were certain leaders that, wanted to cut off certain trades and certain things. And then that leader is no longer there. And then we put another leader and then things are back to normal again. So that the whole goal is interdependence, to where our country owns a lot of their goods. Okay. My brain's still reeling. There we go. There was my out loud thought process. How are we doing, guys? Are you guys getting bored of this yet? Should I keep on going? Tonight, finish it on Sunday. I'm happy to keep going. I'm enjoying this. This is very learned for me because it's building. I've got this big, huge base of knowledge, and all of this stuff right now is putting all these pieces together. If you guys are getting bored and you're kind of getting tired of it, then we can continue on Sunday. But so keep going. Okay, good, because I want to keep going. I like to finish a whole entire topic because that's just how I am.
It sat around for a bit, and then in around 2010, Sir Ronald Cohen, who was with something called social finance, took a whole bunch of money from the UK
Utah
lottery fund, like the unclaimed money. I think it was called Big Society Capital, not lottery. It was the unclaimed bank accounts, things. So they had this big pot of money and they said, we're going to come up with social impact bonds to improve society with these social impact bonds. So we're going to do performance-based metrics. And now the technology is caught up with it, right? Like we have the Internet of Bodies and we have the Internet of Things. We have real-time data. We have satellites. We don't need to push people around. We can start to scale these projects. So he created this idea of a cost offset. Eventually, social impact bonds became pay for success. They couldn't scale them. So pay for success is predicated on the fact that the government can't do it, right? Like they have to outsource it because they're like, we don't have the money really. Like we're so lean, we can't possibly do all the public benefits that we need. So we're going to outsource it. That's based on the austerity.
Oh.
They set a contract based on a metric. So for example, one of the early social impact bonds in the US.
Okay, I'm going to read this chart because I can actually read it and then we'll let her explain it. So pay for success, privatization. Okay, let's read the middle part. Deficit model, broken people equal raw material. Depends on environments that break people, fulfilling people as deficient or potentially deficient. So we have pay for success, privatization, which privatization, I'm just telling you right now, is I've just have started learning about this concept. So it's got ongoing austerity. Then we go to outcomes-based contracts, what works government. And then we have a narrow success metric, set test score. Okay. Investors front money for services, education and tech. So what? I'm trying to think what companies right now are investing for education tech. Oh, Google, right? With their little laptops invested tech to schools, maybe. Debt scrutinized and traded. We have people monitored and commodified as data. Is that LOT or IoT? And then we have appointed third-party reviews data, Palantir. And then we have deal pay or not, asset-backed securities, and then shorting, deal paid or not, asset-backed securities. The big money hedge funds. Debt scrutinized, traded. Okay, there we go. So let's see how she explains this. But sometimes she's not reading the whole chart. So there we go.
Was in Salt Lake City. It was for pre-K. And they said, you need a cost offset to justify the profit taking. And they would say, if we give at-risk kids pre-K, we are going to reduce the number of kids in needing special education. So if we put a little bit of, if we put this smaller amount of money up now to preemptively fix them, we won't have this later problem that's more expensive, and the difference between what we put into the program and what we have calculated with our equations that the cost would be if we didn't fix it is we get a slice of that and the investor gets paid back their initial investment and the performance target if the metrics are met. So this one, this social impact bond for pre-K in Salt Lake City was backed by Goldman Sachs. So they screened several hundred kids. They put 100 kids in this pre-K program. It wasn't a particularly super well-funded program, but something. These kids got something. And then at the other end,
Salt Lake is poor. So there's a big area of Salt Lake. Nobody, Sally. So Salt Lake is a poor. There's areas of Salt Lake that are poor, and Salt Lake has started turning. We have been a very, very Republican state, and Salt Lake is starting to turn very blue. And what they've done is they've brought in a lot. And we're not even a sanctuary state, by the way, guys. We don't even have sanctuary cities. But because our church is big on missionaries and taking people in and has big bleeding hearts, they bring a lot of people in. So there's a lot of people that have come into our state that they're practicing a lot of things on right here. They're getting a hold of our kids. Pre-K. Okay, good. Thank you. So pre-K, our government is starting to get a hold of our children. They're starting to teach them with different tools, different things. Okay, let's let her explain this. Okay, I know I'm stopping a lot, but my brain is like connecting so many dots today. It's like a moment of clarity, and I love it.
Only one of the 100 kids was screened into special education services, which is crazy because the people who know education would say, if this child was screened as like potentially needing them, there's no way only one of the 100 kids got it at the end. So either their screening tool was pulling in kids, maybe English language learners, kids who were never going to need special education, they just need time to catch up, or they were denying kids services, or some measure of both. And I think those of us who understand like the gaming
Nope.
goes on in the charter,
They just haven't been in the sun.
Things
That's a
can
lie.
be gained. And Goldman Sachs is making a bank. So there's another one in Chicago, and it also ties in third grade test scores and family services. So they pick a number. So essentially what they're saying is they reduce, the service gets redesigned to the number, right? Or the metric. So the pre-K offset was special education. Prison is a huge cost offset. We've been hearing for decades.
Okay, I've got to read this slide because so mass incarceration has been one of the most salient policy failures of the past half century. Current momentum toward decarceration era goals has created newfound hope that this problem can be addressed. However, the success of contemporary prison reform efforts may hinge on changing both the financial incentives and the cultural outlook of the prison industry. This article uncovers the motives of prison. I don't feel like, does this go with what she's talking about? I hope it does. This article uncovers the motivations of prison industry actors and their modes of resistance to reform. In doing so, it is a crucial first step toward shifting the incentives of industry stakeholders and accomplishing the goals of contemporary prison reform. Okay, she's talking about education. Maybe someone put the wrong
Look
slide.
how expensive prison is. We spend this much on prisoners.
Maybe
How
not.
can we do that? Well, all of that is fully embedded in our consciousness now. It's very expensive. Look, that's a giant cost offset. Maybe we can predictably profile people and keep them out of prison, as though being in prison was necessarily something that was an individual choice as opposed to a structural problem. And it's some, measure of both. And so that's how they have the cost offset. Sorry. I know. I think I lost it. So is it coming back? Yeah. Okay. So you have austerity. The government says, we'll pay you if you can provide a quality service. Quality meaning a
I left my
narrow
water
metric.
downstairs, so I was trying to hurry back and
The
pause.
investors front the service. The thing is, where is the money? People are like, I don't see why they would do this. There's not that much money in this performance contracting system. Like you just get a little slice, and maybe you don't even get that if the thing you invest in doesn't work. It's not the deal, but the deals have to exist to securitize the debt. And that's where the money is in the securitization. So they're going to securitize that debt. The people who are in the deal, who maybe never asked to, are monitored as data. That's the Internet of Bodies, right? Like maybe they don't get to opt out of being part of the pay for success. I mean, there's
Commodities, allowing people to come into our country. People invest in this data collecting, right? And they can sell this data, depending on if it's successful or not, to other people. So they're making an investment on human bodies. That's how they become a commodity.
There's a bunch of kids in Chicago whose third grade test scores are part of Goldman Sachs' pay for success deal. Nobody gave them the option of not being part of that deal. To make it all legit, even though we know the metric is set so that it will preference the investor, because the investor's not going to invest in something they're not going to make money on. Like the city is going to work with Goldman Sachs. Like they're going to make it happen for them. A third party will review the data and say, oh yeah, it's a good deal. You met the terms. But the crazy thing is some of the third party reviewers, there are multiple of these pilots in Santa Clara, California. So
I want to know if this coincides. Oh my gosh. I want to know if this coincides with No Child Left Behind program. Because that is like the kids didn't get smarter, right? They just kept getting moved up. Were they part of this program? Is that why they started making it so expensive? So I didn't opt to be part of this program, but maybe certain school districts and certain schools paid for this program. And because it used to be that you could miss 8 days a quarter of school, right? And then they made it to where you could only miss 4 days of school. And if you missed more than that, then you had to pay money. Like my kids were bad. And well, they still passed their classes, but they either had to do community service to make up for their time, and they still end up having to pay money, but it was a lot of money for their missed school because each day that they missed over their 4 per quarter, the school was not getting money for their time that they missed. They only got paid for certain days they went to school.
Silicon Valley.
Let's see what
There's
say.
a pre-K, an early literacy, a housing social impact bond, and a mental health social impact bond. The mental health and the housing one, the people reviewing the data are Palantir. Like, that's Peter Thiel's company. They have contracts with Department of Homeland Security. They're doing like sneaky moves with predictive policing. Like these are not good people. But like now, if you're someone who is unhoused in Santa Clara and you need housing, and maybe you have someone in your family who's undocumented, well, Palantir is going to be checking out your data. So that is part of the deal. And then the deal is either found to be legit, that it was met or not. But once the debt is securitized, people can also short it. And that's the thing that is really vital to understand, is that once it's out on the markets, there are people that are, so yeah. And people say, oh, is this real? No, it's actually real. So this is from 2012, where they're already talking, this is the pre-K finance for social impact bonds for not just pre-K, but K-12 and workforce. So that's job training. That the assets will be bought and sold by investors, traded worldwide, and aggregated in asset-backed securities. I mean, that's been the plan since 2012. And let me see.
Oh, that is Obama.
This is in the process now. So what?
Okay, this was in 2012. Let's see. What year is it right now? That would have been, so 2000. Okay, all they're playing, I'll do the math. This was Obama. This was Obama, guys.
Phil Murphy, New Jersey governor. Okay, so these career impact bonds, the career impact bonds to reskill people. The guy who's part of that, it's all structured debt. It's structured finance. And people don't think, like, why would you do that to like pre-K or workforce development? Because it's a commodities market. They're building commodities markets out of dispossession. So Christopher.
So this is what I was telling you guys earlier, guys. So if you take this time period, that would have been when my son was 7. Okay. I told you he was smart as a whip. And this is exactly when they started changing the way they taught math. Instead of doing it in paper and have the teacher go through all the steps, they started calling it mental math. They wanted you to be able to do these long form math problems in your head. You didn't have to show your work anymore. This is when he was 7. Okay. He's smart, but he's like me. He needs to be shown. So they changed the way they teach our children. Oh my gosh. They're trying to make our kids stupid so that these guys can make money by investing in them as a commodity to see it's mining data.
Riccardi. He was the grandfather of collateralized debt obligations. Like, he did that. He crashed he was a key figure in the crash of the global housing market. He is part of something called EDLI, which is a platform to securitize debt on these. You can securitize people now on these income sharing agreements. So this isn't so pre-K, you have social impact bonds. You're probably not going to do an income sharing agreement with a toddler, but you are going to do it for someone who's been reskilled out of their job because they were a cook in their restaurant, went out of business, right? You can reskill them to code the virtual jail. And this income sharing agreement essentially says, I don't pay fees for my training, but I agree to sign a contract that you can garnish my wages for X amount of time, assuming I get a job and that meets the criteria in the contract. And then you pull that out. So all of that debt is, the plan is to securitize it, and Chris Riccardi is in on it. And you can imagine the scale this is going to happen. So this was in the fall of 2018, and I really actually wanted to go to this event. But Ready Nation, this is Robert Duger, who worked for Paul Tudor Jones. And Jim Heckman. So the equation that's going to work on pre-K. These payment success deals rely on equations. And I know this is really complicated, but that come out of universities, like the rules. They need the rules of the game. The equation for pre-K.
Okay, so I don't see if you see this, guys. So we have ready. So this is RN Global 2018, right? So we have Bill Gates down here, and here we have Gruesome up here, and workforce development. I want to know how this all ties together to where they're making money.
Investment came from the University of Chicago. It's a Nobel Prize winning economist. His name is Jim Heckman. It's called the Heckman equation, and the Pritzker family paid for it. So the Pritzker family said, if we can move pre-K data, and what Heckman said is we can't change cognitive data because the IQ hardens up. It doesn't work for hedge funds, but we can change character. So all the stuff about the Ocean 5 traits and personality traits, essentially they're going to digitally brainwash children for profit to like make the equation work. So Heckman's equation said it was a 7 to 10% annualized rate of return on pre-K, up to 13, I think, if you had health impacts. So put a Fitbit on.
Oh, she didn't read this. Training that creates an obedient, fearful mindset. Okay. They can't go by IQ because it becomes more set. You know, kids are kind of just smarter than not, right? SEL data collection, big 5 ocean, openness, conscientiousness, extroversion, agreeableness, and eroticism. So I guess that's how they used to measure it. Measuring is and assessing skills. Okay.
Well, those kids, right? They're all commodities now. And so they met in New York City to launch. It was a global gathering of pre-K, and you couldn't, it actually said on the registration, if you are an advocate for pre-K or children, you can only come with approval of 4 vetted business people. Like it said on the registration, they're like, if you're just coming to be an advocate for kids, like, no, you got to be the right people in the room. And so the Ampli people were in the room, and the mayor of Boa Vista that had the home visits with the tablets and the smart contracts was in the room. And all these people were in the room, and this is going to, match up. Now, it's Newsom is talking, all of the Democratic governors are talking pre-K, which sounds good, except
I can't believe she keeps not calling Newsom by his proper name. It is Gruesome. Okay, let's get that correct for one. Another impressive female, Mayor Teresa Sarita of city of Boa Vista in Brazil, 2018. RN Global 2018 Summit, tackling childcare initiatives, resulting in 285% increase in childcare centers opening and drop in 60% in child mortality rates. Bravo. Okay, I want to know if this data is fudged. Interesting.
When it's based on data commodities. I know this is kind of, but education, this is the new currency. The currency is blockchain education on these income sharing agreements. If you're wondering, Ivanka's on with the reskilling with Mark Benioff, so it's a fully bipartisan there. And they're
wait. When was she at the World? When was she at the World Economic World Skills supports international education response to pandemic. This is during the pandemic, though. World Skills has joined a global coalition to support education and create learning opportunities during the COVID-19 pandemic. Oh. Huh. Interesting. That was January 22nd of 2000. The pandemic, 2000. It wasn't full-fledged pandemic then, was it?
Add image. So this is actually from a defense contractor in Orlando. Orlando is a center of simulation. And what they're talking about is training kids for this future of work. But they're never going to actually tell you how the whole machine works, because 1 week you're pushing this button and 1 week you're pushing some other button. And the micro AI tells you what your work is allowed, on blockchain. These kids are being trained to work in Amazon warehouses. And this is actually in the UK. This is preschool kids in VR headsets. And that is for digital brainwashing. I mean, look at that. That's not right. You're not even supposed to have those things on until you're like 13. And UNICEF is behind a lot of this, and they're piloting it in Africa. And they're saying that there is skills gap with social emotional learning. but virtual learning can provide better access to learning experiences that would be too expensive. So UNICEF is saying, like, kids are having the wrong behaviors, and we're going to train them to have the right behaviors on blockchain with VR. So I'm just going to, we'll have more Q&A. I'm just going to hit some highlights for these are key people in New York State that I threw together. So I have a blog post called like Boiling Frogs and Building Brands. I'm actually, I grew up the kid of Procter & Gamble executive. My dad sold Folgers coffee his whole life. And that was like art.
Wow.
My dad sold Folgers coffee. He worked for Procter & Gamble. And
Part of waking up.
And I'm trying to remember the guy's name. He was tracking oil of Olay lipstick. And he had, it was the RFID.
I love how many notes I just missed right there.
Why don't you go to MIT? You're going to scale that. Now there's 8 auto ID labs. But Procter & Gamble was very good at both supply chain tracking and selling you things, right? And advertising. And they're based in Cincinnati. So KnowledgeWorks and Strive Together are key players in this space. KnowledgeWorks in killing.
Exactly, SFC Bruce. That's exactly who's going to determine what the behavior is, right? We don't know what it is. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, it's not determined by us. It's what they deem the behavior to be, which is the scary part. It's just guinea pigs. They're just from what I can understand from all of this data and this is just me thinking out loud. This is not what she's saying, but what I think is what this all means is that they have mass experimentation, social experimentations going on starting at pre-K, and they're picking poor people. I'm assuming that they're people who couldn't normally afford to have daycare or to be in a private school or to be at home, right? So they go in, they get these people signed up for these different programs, and I don't even know if the parents are aware of it. Like I don't know, or if they do, they didn't read the fine print. Not certain of that, but it's almost like these different people are playing this like little game of social behaviors, and each little thing they can compare maybe to a different group of people. And I'm trying to connect this. So it's almost like we want to try to maybe see if this makes someone more narcissistic, or we want to see if this person makes someone more agreeable. We want to see if this makes someone more defiant. So it's almost like they're trying these different modules and different things to see what is the best way to condition someone to a certain behavior, what they want. And the behavior they want is compliance, right? I think that's, but it's not like on a wide scale, and maybe it is, and we're not aware of it because this video is 3 years old, and then they're collecting this data, and these hedge funds are kind of betting on the outcome, so they're going to make the outcome be what it wants because that's the only way the hedge fund's going to get their money out of it. It's from what I can understand from all of this.
Off bricks and mortar schools and having Pokemon Go education and badges. And then Strive is the human capital pipeline. They call it cradle to career pipeline. Strive is working with United Way and Connie Ballmer, Steve Ballmer's wife from Microsoft is on their board. And literally they are building like Internet of Things supply chains of young children in these collective impact programs that are at least in 70 communities all over the country already. I mean, they're not all on with Ampli yet, and they don't all have blockchain identity yet, but that is this larger plan. So Nancy Zimper was part of that, and she was the president of the University of Cincinnati before she came to New York State. So essentially, like when you're like looking at the decimation of what's going to be coming with the higher education system here, like that, Nancy Zimper was sent into that job. She stepped down now, I think, in the last year or so, but she was sent in to do that work. And now she's working with Ridgelane as well with Michael Crow. The history is really important. Some of you guys may know Mark Tucker, if you've ever heard of the Dear Hillary letter, which I highly recommend you read.
No, I haven't.
It's usually like shared around by conservative people, but actually it was read into the congressional record. So it's an actual document, like a primary source. Let's hearsay. But essentially everything in the Dear Hillary letter is what is coming with planned regional economies and apprenticeships and reskilling.
Planned Hillary?
And these planned economies are going through, it's the Workforce Innovation Opportunity Act that was passed under Obama. So regions have like preferred economic constructs. So different regions have different sectors that they're supposed to feed kids into. And it really is running the US Chamber of Commerce. They're running, there's a thing called ONET, which is essentially every job will have skills categories, and that is to match you against the blockchain. And that's out of Raleigh. But like Philadelphia, our regional, like our growth sector jobs, other than 2 of them, they all pay under $12 an hour. Right. And so I'm going to our poverty committee hearings, our city council, who said, oh, maybe we should think about the gig economy, talking about that. Like it hadn't occurred to them before, but they're pushing jobs that are not sustainable. But anyway, so the US Chamber of Commerce, reshaping education for a workforce development pipeline, came out of Mark Tucker. He was based in Rochester, and he was working for the Carnegie Foundation Corporation. And he was essentially set up to restructure American schools. So it's come from Goals 2000, Clinton, Bush. It just continues forward. And he just recently stepped down, and I'm trying to remember who replaced him, but the guy who replaced him is actually from Australia. So this is out of Rochester, so it's not just New York City. But you should look up the Dear Hillary letter. And this is from it. So
I found it, by the way. I found the Dear Hillary, Hillary lecture.
A human resource development system, a seamless web of opportunities to develop skills from cradle to grave, driven by client needs with clear standards. And so that is what we're like. Now they have the technology, right? Now they have blockchain.
This was 1992. I don't know
now
if
they're putting education transcripts on blockchain in Dallas and in Tulsa and in higher ed. They've got many pilots. I could give a 3-hour talk just on. I actually did. I gave like a 3-hour talk on like blockchain education, which is coming. But they didn't have the technology in the late 80s when Mark Tucker first started, but they have it now, and that's coming. The other key figure in this is IBM. So IBM is a major player in the space in blockchain education, and P-Tech, like work-based trained STEM jobs. So they're training up, kids for the 4th Industrial Revolution. For the little kids, and this is really hard. I had to write a whole blog post about Sesame Workshop and their venture capital arm, and that they were essentially teamed up with IBM to data mine Syrian refugee kids with MacArthur money. And people are like, well, Sesame is so great. But if you actually look at Joan Gans-Cooney, who's been in it since the beginning, they've pushed digital gamification, venture capital, and her husband, who is now deceased, but he was the chair of Lehman Brothers, and he founded Blackstone. So ever since the very beginning, Sesame Workshop has been an extension. And even the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, which I did not know, was backed by Carnegie. The early head had ties to MIT and the War Machine. And it was like the very first public-private partnership. So, so this is Stanley Druckenmiller and Jeffrey Canada. So all of these I skipped through, but the Harlem Children's Zone, it has been the space to pilot all of these equations, because it really is data and equations and rules. So, so they've had a long lead on this. And I talk about the fact that, Paul Tudor Jones, whose Robin Hood money was funneling into Harlem Children's Zone, they have this book of 168 pages of equations. Like if you give a poor kid glasses, this is the economic return. If you solve their parents' diabetes, this is the return. Back and forth it goes. And now they have the equations ready to go. But Paul Tudor Jones, the hedge fund, he got his start in cotton futures trading. He's from Tennessee, now, but his start was in cotton futures trading. So, the way in which these wraparound services, which are really central to the Harlem Children's Zone, are now for everybody. Everybody's going to have wraparound services. I've spoken about Bloomberg, but again, talking about domain awareness system and the security state. You guys, New York City is the home of Sidewalk Labs, right? So that's Google Alphabet's Smart Cities program. And essentially at NYU, Paul Romer's talking about charter cities or carve outs where you have special exception zones where you could just hand a zone over, to a company. And I know there's been a lot of pushback in Toronto about Sidewalk Labs there, but really Google would like to have your own communities where they can set the rules, and they will be smart communities, and they'll have the policing, and if you're unhoused, they'll come put you on a pay for success pathway. Another person is Neil Kleiman. I saw him speak at Penn. He's a professor at NYU. He's the progressive. Stephen Goldsmith out of Harvard is the conservative. So they've teamed up on a new operating system for the city. So all of these smart contracts have to run on e-government and digital identity. And so he's a key figure in that bit. Deborah Estrin was actually, she came out of UCLA, and she is now based at Cortell Technion on Roosevelt Island in New York City. They have a small data lab that's tracking all the health data. But she was early on, she chaired this committee in 2001 called Embedded Everywhere. And this was before they were really talking about Internet of Things. But in 2001, they were already identifying sensors spread throughout the everyday environment, people's activities recorded and shaped by computing systems, and that will shift from computers to smart desks and swallowable health monitors in automated buildings. So that's like 20 years ago. So Deborah Estrin was chaired that committee. Now she's at Cortel Technion, the small data lab. And what's really interesting is like, if I actually went there because I do landscape, so I actually like to see these things and actually go there. I went to Liebman at Harvard, like the social impact bond lab. I just wanted it like the banality of evil. Oh, it lives in a cubicle and it looks like this. But I went to the campus to see Bloomberg and Google kind of got that all started. And there's a smallpox. The smallpox
and
ruin
Google
is like in this area, state park, and then there's the FDR park, and it overlooks the United Nations. Right. So it's very symbolic. Like if you actually think about it, and they're looking to data mine your health as a commodity. So this guy, JP Pollock, is also at Cortel Technion and the small data lab. He co-founded as the
so if they're investing in our health, are they investing that we die off sooner so that we take up less air and less space, so that they're hoping that we go away? Just a thought. It's just a question that why? Data mining our health? Why? What purpose is that? That makes zero sense.
architect of Common Pass, right? So the COVID pass is going to tell you where you can go, what you can do, is also about data mining your health. And he actually also has some creepy stuff with zoology, because we have to understand the UN Sustainable Development Goals are about keeping people away from nature and nature away from people. And they're going to say it's for all of our safety, right? And the World Bank has a whole program called One Health to keep people separate. And so
that's the other one, for your own good, for your own safety, for your own good, for your own safety, sustainable. That one just slipped my mind. We are watching Biometric Health Passport and the Panopticon. Thank you for smashing the thumbs up, Traveling Fools over on Rumble. I appreciate you. Very much appreciated. And welcome, Neurodivergent. And I did say hi to Kevin B. Clark. Welcome. Welcome, everyone, to my chat. This is where we watch documentaries that I hope, but I haven't done very many on YouTube. And I'm just going to do what I can and try to make sure I let you guys know that I do not support any of this data that this lady is telling us right now. I think that she is a big whack job conspiracy theorist. And I think that you all should get 3 shots. And I think that these programs are very good for your kids. And, these people are making lots of money. And I want to give them a big round of applause for what they are doing to these poor families that need free education. So with that said, guys, let's continue on. Oh, while I still have a good amount of people in here, guys, I have not posted this banner yet, and I do it about once a show. Let me see real quick. I'll make it really quick to explain, because that is important. Let's see. All right. So I have a good dear friend named Julian, and he is a good friend of mine, and this is his give, send, go. He needs a kidney. Both of them are dead, gone, gonzo, broke, don't work. I forced him. Okay, I've been trying to get him to do give, send, go since October. He finally, I think in February, he started in February. He finally in February got his crap together and finally did this give, send, go, because he didn't want to feel like charity. And he felt like, oh, well, if I don't get a kidney, it's okay. Someone else more deserving will get it. And so I told him it was bullshit. Okay, I'll swear. I don't swear often. Okay. But if you guys have any extra money, donate. If you don't have extra money, don't. But if you know people, share it to different platforms or websites, or people who might be able to donate, or those who could give it to someone else, right? So it's just like, not everyone can give. I know what it's like to be tight. I get you. This is not a begging you for charity or anything like that, because it's just, if you have extra, donate it. And if you don't, just share it. And then I want to say thank you guys very much for that. He's actually a big reason I used to be terrified coming on camera and even talking these ideas out loud because these ideas are in my head all the time. And I'm like, people are just going to think I'm crazy, right? Because I think through all these things. And I'm not saying they're right. This is just my thought process. And when I have it on camera, I can go back and listen to this stuff myself and see what sounds crazy, right? But these are the things. So his is a give, send, go. And I do not have PayPal. So his is a give, send, go. And I'll show you if you want my stuff, I'll put my stuff up here. So but before I get too distracted, I used to be like, if you go back and watch my YouTube videos that I did that are like shorts from a year ago, that is me terrified to speak on camera. And I had Ford and Julian and a couple of other people have always been in my chat to cheer me on, to say, you got this, you can do it. And so it's been a journey that I couldn't do without certain people. And then I met amazing new people along the way, Traveling Fools and the gang. And tonight I says, I'm going to go on YouTube tonight and, I'm just going to have fun and speak my mind. And I appreciate you guys. So anyway, there was that long story that you didn't really need to hear, but, and it feels free. Like right now, tonight, doing this, which some people don't get this stuff and some people do. But if you start breaking everything down into what's going on now, especially when you have data from this a while ago and you see, my gosh, they are like implementing this, right? Anyway, my point is I used to be not talk out loud because I always get told that you're just a conspiracy theorist. No, I have thoughts that there's things that come up that I question and I'll usually research them and my thought can be completely wrong and I'm okay being wrong. I'm okay with someone bringing me facts. Like I thought that the Francis Scott Key Bridge could have been like intentional, right? However, there was no data that has been released that could tell me that it's intentional, right? Just so I can't prove that it happened. But my brain goes through and tries to eliminate everything else. You are Traveling Fools. You are the last person that is terrified to speak publicly. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Okay, let's get back to this. Anyway, I wanted to just remember to do that shout out for the GoFundMe or the give, send, go for Julian. So if you have it, great. If not, love you guys. Okay. Yeah, Robert's saying he was so nervous to me when I was doing my first tomato videos. And the sad thing, Robert, is those were pre-recorded and edited, and I still struggled with them. But that's okay. It's okay because I just always thought people are going to think I'm stupid and I speak too fast. I'm like, whatever. Think what you want of me, guys, because I'm here to stay.
Zoology, understanding the role of zoology and public health is really important. He also was part of WellCoin. So this is essentially what we're talking about is tokenizing good behavior. Like in the future, in the augmented reality world where we are not going to be allowed to have real work, is behavioral compliance to a pathway for impact investors. And we'll track it on blockchain and give you script in coins for behaving. So there he is on Common Pass, but there's like 60 board. Like you should look at the board. It's huge. It's very
common project.
The other piece is that Google Alphabet is in health, blockchain health, and they call it city block. So you have your smart city, and then you have your smart health system. It's on blockchain, and it's specifically targeting complex urban populations. If you want to read between the line on that one. So there you go. So yeah, so that's one of my maps of the Cornell Tech. And yeah, so I'll just wrap up. So data is currency. They're feeding it to try to hasten the singularity. All of that data, until we're made obsolete, blend with the cloud is informing data, predictive analytics.
Okay, let's just read this real quick. So key points. Data is now currency. Our lives are being transformed into data to profit fintech. Fintech, that's a new word, fintech. I'm going to look that up. They are feeding our data into machine learning to hasten the singularity. Until then, data informs predictive analytics for financial markets and the military. With 6G will come digital twinning. Okay, so digital twinning and more sophisticated virtual simulation. So for those who just got here right now, digital twinning is like, say it's, oh gosh, okay, let's see if I can say this correctly. It's pretty much like there's no separation between the cyberspace and me speaking right now. So if I were to move my hand like this and say I was in Africa operating a robot, there would be no delay in my hand movement. It would work simultaneously at the exact same time. That's a new term, a new technology. So hopefully that made a little bit of sense. Thank you, New York Smoke 33. Thanks for being here. Geolocation data will be used to create open air prisons. So yeah, we'll just have our 15-minute cities that we can't leave. Biosecurity has turned our bodies into potential threat vectors. Biosecurity has turned our bodies into potential threat vectors. Interesting.
Analytics, and that's both for financial markets, and I think we also have to understand it as military signals intelligence, like within these digital twinning and modeling communities. The digital twinning is coming with more and more sophisticated virtual simulations. If they can push us into virtual worlds, they can control us and they can extract further value. So you can imagine, like within capitalism, finite consumption in the real world, push you into a video game. Guess what? You can maybe have 3 versions of you. Right? You could have all different kinds of versions of you, and they could data mine all of you virtually as like multiples. It's kind of like that crazy,
Oh my gosh.
Multiplicity, where he like cloned himself, only it's just in a video game. So it's like a lot easier.
Oh my gosh, guys, the president really is a clone. Right. She just proved it right there. I guarantee. No, I'm just kidding. I don't know. That's a rumor out there. But she's saying they have the technology. It's just implementing it. Augmented reality, yes. Augmented reality. You're smart, Dean. Thank you.
Essentially, the geolocation data and the satellite systems are these open air prisons that are guiding us like domestic livestock. And this biosecurity, people need to know that this is not a one-off. It's not.
Okay, this is making me laugh because this was 3 years ago. Okay, mind you, this is in 2021. Health passports will be used to control mobility and create digital identity systems that will scale global investment markets aligned with the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals and tracked on blockchain. Our data is being used to create derivatives markets in human capital. This is why we have an influx of immigrations coming to the United States, because they are capital, and our birth rates are low because they want our birth rates low. Don't know why. Why not just tell our people to have more babies, right? We will be subject to digital interventions to grow impact markets. The Green New Deal is actually about poverty management and totalitarian control of the masses by transnational global capital interests. Many players in this game have ties to New York. Why is New York being the first state to be completely destroyed? Completely destroyed right now. Oh yeah, right now the health transports will be used to control mobility and create digital identity systems that will scale global investment markets, aligned with United Nations Sustainability Development and track on blockchain. The globalists are coming for us all. Okay, my throat's going to be sore. And that was a horrible impression. I'm going to have to work on that one as a female.
Just like at this point, I'm not talking
Tell me Alex Jones' voice
anymore. It doesn't really, I mean, it is what it is. People know what it's because the next one they've got bunch lined up, right? Like when they need it. Goldman Sachs has like a whole division. They have an effective lockdown index with Google and Oxford. Like it's not the COVID lockdown index. It's an effective, whenever Goldman Sachs needs to lock down the globe, if Goldman Sachs can lock down the globe. And that's what we're looking at if we don't resist the whole structure that's coming. It's the biosecurity state. Yeah, so the health passports, it's all linked to the Sustainable Development Goals. I think I skipped over some of that, but goal 3 is health.
Okay, Julian just saved me because I was just saying that I wonder if this is why exactly right now that they are destroying New York at such a grave level, and they are mass. And I am I'm not of one, and you guys can disagree with me, and that's okay. I know that Governor Abbott is part of this group of people that she's talking about right now, right? So Greg Abbott shipping all these people up to New York. I don't think it's coincidence. I think it's intent. I think it is. I think this is just my opinion. I have no evidence to back it up, other than information, which is my opinion, right? So an educated opinion. Just the things that are going around the world, that they are shipping these people up there. They're implementing these programs on these kids that are going up there, their children and whatnot. And right now, in real life time, they are testing out this system and how it's going to work, and it's going to become absolutely lawless and crazy. And then they're going to do their first. This is just my wacko head making. This is where my head goes. They're going to make it their first open air prison with biosecurity metrics. Just a thought, just my opinion. It would make sense based off of. Anyway, I would say I think that those people, Abbott shipping them there and to Chicago. Chicago is probably second. Anyway,
Goal 3 is health, and these derivatives markets are being in training, education, and healthcare, and like we're going to be subjected to these digital interventions, whether we like it or not. And like, so this year's flu shot is what it is. But like I'm telling you, in a couple of years, it's going to be with a perfusive biosensor. And are you going to be able to say, no, thank you to that level of?
I just want to say, guys, make sure you get your flu shot every year. So this, whatever she's saying is nonsense. I don't agree with this. Make sure you get your flu shot every year, and make sure you have your triple vaxxed, and make sure or I think, are they on 5? Make sure you have all 5 of your shots. So stay on top of that.
Of intervention. The Green New Deal is ultimately going to be about this totalitarian poverty management. It's not
really, it is.
And so much of it is the branding. Like I'm all for right relationships with, like we need to heal the earth, each other. We need to be respectful. We need to pursue degrowth. There are many elements of this, but the Green New Deal is not that. I mean, and that's why, like when Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez came out, I'm like, wait a minute, Goldman Sachs is a whole green bond market, right? Like, does she not know about Goldman Sachs' green bond market and their smart social impact bonds for water management? And Goldman Sachs, like, who is not telling her that?
Hey, Mr. Dean, you're in there. So you're on X. I tonight streamed to a platform called YouTube, which I don't normally do, but I have a lot of friends over there that I've been joining on stream. So I braved to go over there and to discuss these certain topics. And I need to make sure that I inform the public that my position on that. Okay. So yes, I will shut up, but I won't laugh out loud. Love you just the same. I didn't see your laugh out loud till afterwards. Now I knew it was a joke. Tell me to read better. Tell me to read better. It's okay. Give me the bird finger. It's okay. I'll take it.
Like it's a branding program that they hope people won't know till it's too late. That's all built on the Internet of Bodies. And yeah, so you have a lot of players here. So anyway, this is just my fun thing. I just like close with this Chicagan, but like let's see, I'm just gonna let me read this one section. So this is a book about Robin Wall Kimmerer's, but they talk about
It's a book about what?
Chicagan. This is from Robin Wall Kimmerer's book, Braiding Sweetgrass. It's not that book, but it's talking about her book. But it says, to become Chicagan, she will urge, by tending those who are already such, human and others, present and past, trusting the generosity of intelligence not our own, and gifts that we did not create. And so I guess I want to leave you with the hopefulness is that we all have, like medicine. She talks about medicine for the bundle, right? Everybody has the thing that they can bring to this struggle. And I'm trying to provide a framing. Like I'm happy to engage. I'm sorry I wasn't able to like fully articulate the whole social impact bond finance piece of it, but it's coming. I mean, these models of blockchain identity, the EDLI securitization platforms, the plan for social impact securitization, that is coming. Whether they can fully scale it and how quickly is the question, but I think we should all agree that nobody's child, nobody's parent, nobody's sick person, nobody should be a commodity on blockchain. And I have a friend We collaborate a lot because she's in Silicon Valley. She's a professor at San Jose State. And she's also the chair of the education committee for the San Jose NAACP. And so we actually collaborated on a resolution that passed at their national meeting last year that essentially said they would oppose any compulsory linkage of a blockchain identity to any public benefit service access, right? So you should not, and before, I'm going to skip back because I had to skip over this but this is really important to talk about. And this is why there's a lot in here, guys.
I want to know how much of this stuff, you would think that the government would have to know about all this stuff in here, because this is in 2019, ratified by the National Board of Directors at the October 2019 board. I guess it's a directors meeting at the National Associations for the Advancement of Colored People. Oh, then, okay. Let's see what she has to say. I'm going to have to read all these.
Guys. Alice, I need you to look at this. Okay, So this is the money slide, all right? This is from the task force, the Illinois Blockchain Task Force Working Group. And you have to understand Illinois, Chicago commodities trading, right? There's a geography to this. This is a thought experiment. So this has not yet been put in place, but they're like, how can we play with this equipment? This seems very interesting, right? So in this social benefits distribution case snapshot. So this is about food assistance programs where you have the individual, they get a digital identity with a benefit wallet. In this wallet, you can buy, you buy your food, and you either make the good choice, as they have decided, the Apple.
Okay, I've got to read this. So social benefits distribution use case snapshot. So this is Illinois Blockchain Task Force. An interesting application could be an entitlements digital currency for benefit programs such as food stamps. See, I told you they started doing this in California. Providing a digital identity verification would help the program accurately verify application and reduce fraud. Smart contracts could precisely determine eligibility efficiently and effectively. And additionally, an additional health eating token incentive system could be offered to achieve ancillary health policy goals, providing additional cost savings for other health benefit systems. So let me read that one sentence. An additional health eating token. So we'll let you eat food. Incentive system could be offered to achieve ancillary health policy goals, providing additional cost savings for other health benefit systems. Wow. They passed the law. They tried to do that with food stamps way back when.
Or the bad choice, the hamburger. If you make the preferred choice, they will ding you back a little bit extra money to your wallet. So essentially, now this whole system is predicated on an understanding. It's a behavioral nudge, and nudges are a big part of this whole what works government, Bloomberg, behavioral economic structure. And people are like, well, people should eat more apples. I don't have a problem with that. Well, the thing is, ultimately, it's pushing the condition, and they'll say, oh, we'll tie this to UN Sustainable Development Goal 3 in health, and everybody's gonna be so much healthier because they have to buy the good stuff, right? But this doesn't look at the fact that maybe this individual lives in a food desert. Maybe this individual works 3 jobs, and maybe they don't have gas, maybe they don't have a full kitchen to prepare their food, or time to cook it, and I'm not making justifications, but there are structural elements, racialized structural elements in how people manage their food choices and what's available to them that this structure doesn't address at all. And then you can imagine that, give this thing a couple years and say, well, you know what? We're just going to pare back on that benefit a little bit, because if they're always making the good choice, they don't need that much money, right? And then eventually it'll be like, you can only get to the end of the month if you always make the right choice, whether or not to make that choice is possible or impossible. And for a lot of people, it may be impossible to make the choice that's determined. And in this, it's not just food, right? You could apply this to a health intervention, right? Which is preferred and which is not preferred. This could be education curriculum, which is preferred and which is not preferred. And who gets to decide? Does Goldman Sachs get to pick? Does UBS Bank get to pick? Does SoftBank get to pick? Who gets to pick what is the good thing? Because the good thing, like the logic dictates that they will make choices that are to their advantage, whether or not maybe it works out for you or not. They will not set up a structure that works to their disadvantage. And what I want to say is that if we allow a global police state, of surveillance state, to be built on blockchain that runs on poverty management, and it's profitable for someone, it's crazy to think that they're going to have less poverty. If it's profitable, you only have more poverty. It's slightly better managed, right? I mean, that's the logic of this. And I'm not saying, that's just how it's going to go. And so, I don't think I got.
Just for a second, think about how many people in San Francisco are homeless. And why do they continue to remain homeless? Because there is a lot of money to be made by these people like that they're talking about in here. There's a lot of money to be made in keeping them homeless, right? I would like to know an accounting. I would like to know a ledger for all of the money that has been allocated for the homeless people in San Francisco, and where it has gone, and what they have spent it on, and what they have not spent it on, and how many houses they were supposed to build but never built. Oh, that makes sense, traveling fools. Okay.
Got to talk about this piece, but what do these things look like? Okay, so here's the retinal scan for Syrian refugees for their grocery payments. So that's being piloted. In the UK, the National Health Service has bought 5.8 million of these shop with your DNA nudge bands, right? So they already got it, and they're attaching it to COVID, right? So now they got all your DNA and say, oh, okay, well, you need food assistance? Well, just so you know, here's your trusty nudge band. This is what you're allowed to eat, by the way. Or we'll incentivize you to eat the right things that match your DNA, which is incredibly, like, there's a huge eugenics element to this too. And I would have to say, like, that the interoperable data systems, Data Zone is the model in Santa Clara County. It was back.
I want to tell you that, okay, I don't know who wrote the book because I've had people tell me this. I can't remember who. Someone was like, oh, have you ever looked at this book by eating by your DNA? I'm like, mind you guys, I was a personal trainer for 18 years. And I had so many people tell me, oh, you got to go by the food pyramid. I was like, if I eat according to the food pyramid, I was super active, I would gain 15 pounds. There's no way that I could eat more grains than meat. So I learned at a very, very young age that I ate what made me feel good. You guys know your bodies, and you know what makes you feel good. And we all know that meat and vegetables, if all you had was meat and vegetables, you would survive and you would be really, really healthy. Like, that is like protein. So I gradually am like building up my food storage right now. And protein is like, I've got all so I can like spaghetti sauce, and I have spaghetti noodles. I have rice. Like, I have stuff that'll make a turd for quite a while. And then, but meat, I want to learn how to start. I know that you can, not cold pack, but, pressure cook meat and sell it in jars. Right. And it's probably would be the best tasting. I have a freezer full of fish. I need to learn how. I want to smoke it. And there's a way of pickling it, or there's some kind of way that you can store it in jars. And so I'm going to smoke it, and that, that would sustain for a long pressure cook. You pressure cooking? I need to learn. But my mom was really good at that stuff. Okay. She died 12 years ago. And that is, and I think that was a big travesty of COVID and the lockdowns and putting them in the hospitals without people, is we lost a generation of people that knows how to do this stuff. And I'm going to learn how to do it, and I will live stream it and when I live stream it, you guys, after I'm done, need to download it so that you have it. You have it for your kids, because things are going to go away. Books are going away. Journals are going away. Those things. But anyway, guys, I know that things are tight for a lot of people, but If you're going on a diet, still buy a little bit extra and store it away. Yeah, just don't ask me to make a bread making video. Yes, Ford, our Fox. So I promised when I first started streaming that I would teach Fox how to make bread. And now he's just motivated me to do it. Because I haven't done it for a long time. My mom taught me it's a recipe, and I'm going to do it now, Ford. And I actually, this week when I was at the grocery store and I was thinking about videos, I was thinking about you. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to set up my table, and I'm going to give you I'm going to make you a promise right now. Salsa. I know I didn't can salsa last year. I was very bad because I was overwhelmed with life and everything that I was doing. But this year it's going to be a priority. But I'm going to set a table up here. I'll bring all the ingredients up here so I don't have to bring my studio downstairs. And I'm going to be making a big fat mess up here, and I'm going to make some bread. Okay, it's going to happen. Anyway, continuing on the video. We got baking soda, got salt, got natural raw honey. What else? We've got quite a bit, but yeah. I only trust my canned food. I don't trust other people's canned food, if that makes sense. But you do have to replace it. So you got to build it up, and then you've got to rotate it through.
Backed by Chan Zuckerberg. Priscilla Chan is the medical individual in that partnership. She keynoted at the launch of the Silicon Valley Regional Data Trust. That's this giant interoperable data system in San Jose. Like 500,000 kids are in it. David Hausler was at the kickoff for that. And he was the person who put the genomic sequence on the internet. So why was he there if there's not going to be a genomic component in this profiling, right? And there's a really interesting piece about Dominic Cummings, I think, who is Boris Johnson's like right-hand man, and he's going to remake the NHS for digital and mine it for AI. And he's like straight up a eugenicist. I mean, he's talking about like, you know, relationships and environment don't matter. Your genes determine your future. We're going to determine your educational opportunities based on your genetic code. And in that global education futures timeline that had the people as portfolio commodities, one of the items was a student genetic passport. So this stuff never went away. And the thing for me that was really shocking is I think of stuff as like, I call myself like a recovering liberal. And then I thought I was left, and then I don't know now, but like, I'm not, but when I was looking at Michael Young, who's the father of social entrepreneurship in the UK, he started this idea of social entrepreneurship, right? Making money off of social problems. But he was the thought leader for the Labour Party in the UK in the post-World War II era. And he was part of the Fabian Society, and the Fabian Society started the London School of Economics, which is integral with all of this. So really there is an unpleasant element on the leftist side to eugenics and paternalism embedded in social care that's hard to deal with. And like, I don't know how which is not to say people aren't deserving of it, but I think we just have to understand that history for it to make sense. Because as soon as I saw that, I'm like, well, of course it's in the United Kingdom.
Okay, I got to read this. So, but the example of the Soviet state, its commitments to planning, to technical efficiency, to science education and research that led so many scientists to socialism in the 1920s and 1930s. Hence, they were not in general troubled by the kinds of doubts about eugenics that sometimes beset those suspicious of any extension of the powers of the state. Lancet Hogbin's comment in his 1931 text, Genetic Principles in Medicine and Social Science, typifies the attitude of scientists on the left. Negative eugenics is simply the adoption of a national minimum of negative eugenics is simply the adoption of a national minimum of parenthood. Okay, what are they doing right now to our society? They are taking away parents' rights if your kid doesn't identify a certain way. Or if you don't go do certain things, taking away parenthood. An extension of the principle of national minima familiarized in the writings of Sidney and Beatrice Webb. It is thus essentially in rapport with the social theory of the collectivist movement. If one considers along with their statists and scientific learnings, the little appreciated fact of widespread assumption, virtually universal amongst genetics, that intelligence, personality, and character were determined in substantial degree by heredity. The euthanism of many socialists for eugenics is not surprising. They're trying to breed out those traits and characteristics. Oh my.
Kingdom and the NHS. Like, of course that is how it would happen. So, but don't give up, guys, because like we are really like, the more people know, the better. I mean, it is coming after everyone and we don't want it. Like, I can't imagine any individual in the world who would want that for themselves or their children or their grandchildren or who's coming. I can't like, it's not like, oh, maybe it's 50-50 people who want, nobody wants it except for the billionaires and they're sociopaths. So we just have to like get it together. But like the challenge is that we're so fragmented right now, politically, partisanly, people not really understanding what the structure is, that we have to figure out a way. But it can't, in my mind, it has to acknowledge the history, like the historic precedent and the trajectory. But to fragment just along identity politics lines is
identity.
We're not going to be able to get enough people that way. So we have to like figure out some sweet spot there that we like know the history and acknowledge the history and then like, and look to that history and then like rise.
Okay. I really, really like how she just ended that right there, because that has been what I have been telling people for a really long time, guys, is why do you study history? Why do you want to know history? And I have studied history and I have studied the true history, not the history that has been taught to me in history books. And because I've studied the true history, I get questioned and I get told, how dare you? I can't believe you would take that position on that. It's like, what? I'm not allowed to question a narrative when they've lied to me for so long? And I started this journey trying to understand history and what's going on in the world and trying to relate it back to the current times and everything that we're struggling with and everything that we're going through. And it's been, sometimes I know a topic, like I've now through the last, I don't know, when I started this journey, Demon's Wrath got me down this path because he wanted to do documentaries on World War II. I was like, okay, that'd be fun. Let's do that. That'd be cool. Right. So I started doing them. And then it was like, I learned this and this and this and this. And then you go down these rabbit holes. So everything that I talk is either opinion. And when it's my opinion, I'll tell you it's my opinion. But my opinions are based off of my education of being a big nerd that spends all day seeping in information, because I only see us getting out of this, guys. I only see us getting out of this. One is we come together. We stop attacking the left, because they who are the poorer of us, right? They are using the people who do not have a lot of money for their social experiments. They said this. They go into lower income housing, or that like inner cities where there's not a lot of like help, right? So from a young time, they're brainwashing these people. So they don't know what they don't know. So instead of attacking them and saying, you stupid leftists, I will never say that when someone says something stupid on Twitter or X that I just know is totally completely asinine. I half the time don't comment, and I just say, I hope that, like, in my head, I hope that you come to some kind of understanding, because they don't know what they don't know. And it's like this whole Nala OnlyFans girl that's, whether she's a grifter or not, okay? Take that out of it. They're all saying she's grifting from me. Take that out of the whole entire situation. And think of Nala as a leftist and not a porn star. And she decides that she's going to come over to the right side, and all she does is get called names and that she's just a grifter and that you're stupid. Why would you stay? Why would you change your mind? Okay. So this is why I choose to show compassion. I don't know what's in that girl's head. I'm not there with her. She might be grifting and just trying to make money. Great. That's good on her. She doesn't impact my life. She's not in my industry. I don't do OnlyFans. Okay. So don't ever go to my DMs and ask for a picture, because you'll get insta blocked. Just saying. But if you take that as a leftist and we don't show them compassion, and they'll never change. And the other thing with learning history is being able, and it's not just history, it's learning, going down the rabbit holes and learning to know who you can trust, because there's a lot of really false information out there. There's a lot of false information. Everything that's been on here tonight, go research yourself. These are things that I've known in the past, and having it put together in some kind of a structure like this to bring it home to where I can build upon her information. Yeah, neither do I, traveling fools. I don't take them seriously. I do. Anyone who says lived hard or Trumped hard, I don't take them serious either. Or MAGA Republican, or I just don't react to it because they get to think what they want to think, and I don't just spew bullcrap. I don't get fact checked or community notes on Twitter. I don't, unless I am lazy and I repost something without doing my own research. That's the only time, and it's only happened once. If it's something controversial, I will wait, or I'll state it as my opinion with a question mark, right? My whole point of this whole little thing was that history is important in the fact that we have to, and it goes to psychology. We have to understand why we are here. Okay. One common denominator that I have seen over and over again through everything that I researched after the 2000s, every common denominator leads to Obama. I'm sorry, the no kid left behind stuff. That has a direct impact. His social programs that he did. Look at when all these social programs started to collecting data and mining data. And whether it be Obama or the DARPA or whoever it was running the program, but it all stems from there. Was Trump just so overwhelmed and so consumed with all of these attacks? Like from day one, being in the office, it was Russia, Russia, Russia. And then it was whatever else it was after that. So I don't know. I have a hard time holding him responsible to a lot of things. And then it was COVID. And then it was there were so many things that happened to him that, me as a person, if I was dealing with that, I don't know how I could have ran a country. Thank you. I got 823 subs on YouTube, guys. Share out my channel. I will try, if you guys are doing this on YouTube, I will start doing more stuff on all 3 platforms. To be honest, I was terrified of people coming in here and thinking I was stupid. And I just decided that I can't let people impact me like that anymore. And I just need to be me. I do a lot of research. Oh, no, that's Biden. Come on, you guys are silly. That's Biden. That was the first meme I ever made. And that was the day before Alex Jones decided to coin the term Biden. And I was mad that I didn't put out before he did. Because then I said, see, I put this out yesterday. And Julian can attest to that because I said, hey, what do you think? Anyway, actually, he helped. Actually, I sent it over to him and he changed, because I don't know how to do AI art. And I'll have to share it with you guys. But he changed the face to be a mix of Obama and Biden, and it was hysterical, by the way. I loved it. It was great. It was very nice help. I don't know. I don't know if I landed my plane there, guys, if I finished my thought. The history is important. Why we are... you're so sweet, neurodivergent. I know it's silly because people say that to me, and I just think that it's growing up the way I grow up. It's growing up the way I grew up. I was very sheltered, and I was the second youngest of 7, and so I was picked on a lot. And we were very poor, so I was picked on a lot. And yeah, so I don't know. Yeah, so. Anyway, guys, if there's any topics that I haven't covered that you want me to cover, I might know what they are. Sustainability. Sustainability is always a red flag. Anywhere you see the word sustainability, equity, what is it? There's 5 of them. So there's hold on. I think I still have this up because there's at least 3 of them in here. I still can't believe how many private prisons we have. Did I close out the wrong tab? Oh, no, here it is, right here. So the Great Reset, guys, just so everyone in here is completely aware, the Great Reset, um, unlike a lot of conspiracy theorists say out there, the Great Reset Initiative is simply an economic recovery plan drawn up by the World Economic Forum in response to COVID-19 pandemic, which I'm really sorry, YouTube. I can't believe you put this definition and this link to debunk someone's video because honestly, there are books going back years that Soros wrote laying out exactly what the Great Reset was. So come on, you need to do better, please. Klaus Schwab and all these people, I think it was Klaus Schwab. You guys need to do better. I can't even read that definition, but I am looking for these words. Resilient, equitable, sustainable, environmental, green. There's 5. I'll need to find them. But they are red flags, and anytime you see something, that's when you have to question what they're saying and what they're meaning and how educated they are. Bring some to the yard. Oh, you want me to hang on for a minute? Oh, what was I going to say? I've lost my train of thought. Okay. Why Norm Macdonald is the greatest comic ever? Well, no, I'm not serious all the time. So, Mr. Dean, I do have a Twitch channel, and I am not an e-thought. Oh, not tonight. That's okay. I am not an e-thought girl. Sometimes I'll do stretching streams, and sometimes I'll have a little fun. But we do movies on Twitch, and I just got, even though they don't have movies anymore, with Julian's help, and I got an overlay that has a timer or like a stopwatch. So when I start a movie, I can start it. I get a link. I send you the link. I pin it to the top. So you know what movie we're watching. You know where to find it. And at the bottom of the screen, you can see my timer and you can come watch with us. That is like, it's a no political zone. It is that's just our fun zone. And when I start doing garden videos, that's my fun zone. And when I hang out on Traveling Fools channel, that is fun. We play trivia and lots of fun things. I'm trying to see who else was in here at a channel that left from earlier. I'm looking because I know I follow a bunch of people. And Traveling Fools, if I've missed anybody, let me know. Oh, Timber Travelers. Timber Travelers. I followed you on BitChute, by the way. I had to set up a stupid account, which I didn't want to because I hate. You are welcome to post my stuff on other channels, especially my stuff that's educational. And I appreciate you asking me. So yes, Think Right on BitChute has a Timber Travelers. So follow him. I did tell you, Traveling Fools has a channel and we play trivia and it is really fun. And the chat, the cool thing about that, guys, is the chat gets to participate. He has it set up where he asks a question and he doesn't give you enough time to cheat. But I think I found a way to cheat. I'm going to try it out next time we play, but I'm not going to tell anybody. So don't tell anybody. You don't have time to cheat. But when you read out the question, it's 1 through 4, and you put your answer and then you push send in the chat. And at the end, there's a winner and you get a prize. And it is a lot of fun. And it's just hanging out and it's just chilling and it's just some fun times. But anyway, if you guys have topics that you want to talk about, let me know. There's a lot more stuff, guys. There's a lot more stuff on my Rumble channel. It is Talk with Sally as well. Yeah, there's a lot of other stuff on there. There's a lot of other stuff. There's a lot more of my political stuff. Anyway, I think I'm going to sign off then, guys. If I don't have any questions, this is chill time. So if you have any questions that you want answered, I might answer them or I might not answer them. I don't know, but I might. Yes, it was conspiracy theory video about multi-dimensional aliens, and Alex Jones was my co-host, but YouTube felt the need to warn viewers about the multiverse. So yes, that was completely great. Okay. Okay, we're gonna say good night, guys. And tomorrow, plug your locals. Oh, did I not? I plugged it right. Hold on. Let me just make me a locals banner real quick, guys. So how my locals works is eventually I want to live stream to there because it is really fun to be able to post memes, add the like that. I don't know. Is it just Julian? Thank you. Now I can copy and paste that. Thank you. I'll post it over here. Perfect. So locals, I do have my chat behind a paywall. It's only $5, and it's just because I want you guys to have free speech over there. As long as you're not sending nudies, like no vagina, butthole, wieners, or boobs. Okay, that is my rule. But it's just so you can have a fun chat where people can go chat if you want. It's $5 a month. I do post every single time that I'm going to do a show. I open up a chat and so here's my link to my locals, pasting it here. And then I'm going to put it up in hold on, let me banner for it real quick. But it's just a fun place. There's Kyle's in there quite a bit. I'm trying to get in there more. I'm feeling a lot less stressed. I'm feeling a lot, I think because I went outside and put my feet in the dirt today and grounded myself, and it made me just what's the wrong tab? Now I'm having an ADD struggle. See, this is why I have everything prepared ahead of time, because I don't know how to function when I talk. I'm doing pretty good. This is actually a pretty good night. Usually I can't do this. Add banner. Let's see how it goes. Here we go, guys. That is my locals. Yay, I did it. Thank you, Julian, for posting that in there so I could just copy and paste it. I appreciate that. All right. Center. Oh, where did I put my crystals? Oh, this is what I did too. You guys might not know this. Hold on. Then I'm going to end it. Where is my purple one? Better be right here. Oh. So I don't know how many of you guys believe in this juju stuff, but I found these crystals hiking. So let me see if I can get them close enough for you. So anyway, I took these crystals up. Well, I found them hiking, and during the solar eclipse, I took them outside and I let them charge in the sun during the solar eclipse. So these things are all charged up with good energy too. If you guys don't believe in this stuff, start carrying around crystals. It deflects bad energy, and I think. Anyway, now I'm talking. Now I'm talking like a nut. Now you guys are gonna think I'm a nut. Okay, congratulations, you got me there. I crush it and snort it. No, thank you. I have never. Yeah, it's really weird. It almost looks like it has It almost looks like it has fool's gold on it. It's got like purple in it. It's got green in it, and I've never wanted to break it, but it's kind of cool. Let me see if I can cover it. Let's see. There's a fool's gold right there. It focused real good for a second. Oh, you sold them? That's okay. Exactly. You stubbed your toe on it. Awesome. You love a good rock. No pun intended. Yeah. I don't know. But it was cool because I found them hunting with or hiking with my son, which was the cool part. With my doggy do. That was even the better part. So there are good memories there too. Okay. I'm not talking anymore. I don't know how to end this. So I'm ending in 3, 2, 1.